No, we have to pay really close attention.
No, it's just going to go.
Make most of it.
Good evening. We're going to call this meeting to order. The Orange County Board of Education pledges to its citizens to conduct its business in a courteous and productive manner, showing respect for fellow board members, staff, and its citizens. The board asks its citizens to conduct themselves in the same courtesy towards both school personnel and each other. A moment of silence will be observed before each meeting. The board asks that you check your cell phones and other electronic devices to be certain they are either turned off or on vibrate to avoid interruptions for the meeting. Right, and we will start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll go ahead and just take a moment of silence. All right, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming out. We'll get started tonight. Dr. Felder, my understanding is we got a student presentation tonight.
We do, and beginning with a proclamation, I understand.
Good evening, Chair Atherton, Vice Chair Purcell, school board members, Superintendent Felder, and cabinet members. On behalf of the Orange County Schools Literacy Team, thank you for allowing me the opportunity to recognize the development of the Orange County Schools Youth Poet Laureate program. This program is an innovative program that was developed this year and resulted from the collaboration between an acclaimed local author who happens to be with us tonight, and the teachers and students of Orange County Schools. Thank you. When getting to know Jaki Shelton Green, it does not take long to understand how she broke through closed doors and shattered glass ceilings to be appointed as the North Carolina Poet Laureate in 2018 as the first African American Poet Laureate of North Carolina and the third woman Poet Laureate of North Carolina to receive this title. Wise, authentic, passionate, bold, inspirational, and gifted. These are all just a few words that can be used to describe the essence of Jaki Shelton Green and all that she has shared with the Orange County Schools community this year as we work together to forge a new partnership. She brings her many gifts and talents and has made it her mission to not just write poetry as the Poet Laureate, but to truly serve as an ambassador for the next generation of young poets and writers across North Carolina. She has made it her mission to use her honor and title to inspire our youth through her vision to have Youth Poet Laureate programs all across North Carolina. It was with this vision that Ms. Shelton Green and Dr. Felder created space to develop a beautiful program that dared to be different in an educational world that often relies on standardization. This program dares to inspire our youth to find their voices, develop their identities, and explore the written, spoken, and alive world of the English language arts. Ms. Shelton Green, we are forever grateful for your dedication and commitment to the students of Orange County Schools. The Youth Poet Laureate program in Orange County Schools went through a multi-phase process that was inspired by Ms. Shelton Green's vision for how to honor and recognize not only our poets in the district, but our students as future ambassadors for the written and spoken word. This program began with students attending poetry clubs at their respective schools. Thank you, Ms. Eisenhower from Cedar Ridge High School, Ms. Beatty from Partnership Academy, and Mr. Bethel from Orange High School for leading this charge at each of your schools. In February, our students were able to spend 2 days with Jaki Shelton Green during a 2-day poetry intensive workshop. During these 2 days, students studied youth poets, poetry craft, what it means to be ambassador of poetry, and got to know Jaki Shelton Green on a personal level. It was a transformative experience, and we were so appreciative of the thoughtfulness, love, and attention that Ms. Shelton Green gave us during these days. After the 2-day poetry intensive, students continued to work on their poetry. They submitted one original poem, and working with Ms. Shelton Green, we developed an all-star team of judges, which were poet laureates from across North Carolina, to determine who our Orange County Schools Youth Poet Laureate would be. During the Orange County Schools Night of Poetry in April, which is also the National Poetry Month, we were able to come together as a community of writers. Local authors came to read their poetry and serve as role models for our students. Our youth who are sitting behind me and who will come up in a minute to share some of their poetry were able to read their poems at the event. And then we were able to name a youth poet laureate at each of our high schools, as well as one overall Orange County Schools poet laureate. This has truly started a movement. Faith Litchfield, who is sitting behind me as our Orange County Schools Poet Laureate, has already been to speak at the 4th grade team for River Park Elementary School, where she wrote an original poem. She just informed me she's going to Grady Brown, possibly Gravely, back to River Park, all before the end of the year. Guadalupe Luna Rojas was able to go to the Dudley Flood Center Mapping the Movement event last week and read her poem to a room of state leaders who are advancing equity across our state. Mr. Dudley Flood, who helped lead North Carolina through desegregation, sat in the front row, and she received a standing ovation after her poem. We've already had the Chapel Hill Poet Laureate reach out and ask one of our students to read at the Juneteenth celebration for the town of Chapel Hill later in June. So our poet laureates are already taking the world by storm, sharing their voice, sharing their poetry, and sharing their gifts with the greater world. At this point, I will ask that our poet laureates come up and join me. Anyone who participated in the program in addition. So we have Faith Litchfield, who is our poet laureate from Orange High School. We have Guadalupe Luna Rojas, our poet laureate from Cedar Ridge High School. And then we have many more fantastic poets who are joining us this evening to stand together in appreciation for all that Ms. Jaki Shelton Green has shared with us throughout the course of this year. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to our students who have a couple original poems that they have asked to share with the Orange County School Board of Education. Guadalupe?
Hello, good afternoon. My name is Guadalupe, and I am Cedar Ridge High School Poet Laureate. I wrote in Ars Poetica. It's a poem on why I write poetry. My poetry forms through the night of tears. It roots from my fears, my dreams, my disappointments and disgraces. It became my savior at my lowest with an armor of hard plastic and a sword of ink. I opened my eyes and was reborn, sentences trickling through my brain, spilling from my heart, Poetry created a song I sing through my art. Now words invade my once dark world, inspiration in the sky, a face in the wind, a symphony through weeps. The words I speak are those unspoken. I am no longer ashamed to say, I am a poet, I am a poet, I am a poet.
Hi, I'm Amaya Rivers. I'm from Cedar Ridge High School. Okay. This one doesn't have a title yet. It's just something I wrote a while ago. I'm sitting in this pew with sore legs, waiting for the ceremony to be over. Becomes even more taxing as I realize the itch on my abdomen is from the new dress I adorn. I let out a tired sigh as the pastor recites his tired lines. It causes side eyes from the older women around me. I mean, the judgment is all they can afford after spending so much on their Sunday best. Their hats are bigger than the badass kids. They pop because they won't stay awake or stay still. They refuse to be the stagnant statues the ladies try to mold them into. I can see myself in them. I can see the pastor about to possess the Holy Ghost in and out of the willing actors. The drummer just won't stop playing, and I can't find myself complaining. It's a good distraction from the contradictory scene in front of me. I see the gold dish ready for cash, be passed from giving hand to pickpocket hand to broke hand to back to the glorified pickpocket hand. I see him lying in the casket, a man I stopped loving long ago, and surrounded by a God I no longer believe in. This room is just filled with a never-ending disappointment that I'm not allowed to feel or speak to or even pray to. I can't pray to the God that made me have that man as my father. I can't pray to the God I've known. I can't grieve the only father I had. He's laying there in such a perfect disguise, a broken man that broke everything around him. He looks so whole in that tan suit, but the mean mug stays even with the smile the morgue workers try to force on him. For the first time, I'm not afraid to face you, either of you. My only tie to the man upstairs is walking up to meet him. Both the only man that I lost belief in now stand hand in hand, and the atoms around me. The people in this room, the church we all sit in, the air I walk through, the home I must go back to. They are standing and watching every move I make, but that's a thought for another time, because I'm sitting in this pew with sore legs.
Hi, I'm Hajar. I kind of forgot to title my poem, so yeah. I looked into the mirror today. It shattered. A million pieces sparkled and fell into my hand as the floor became littered with broken glass, broken identity, broken heart. My face, grazed by the burst shards, was it blood or tears that trickled down my face? Maybe even both. My palms outstretched, cut, overturned, and the sparkle joins its companions around my feet. I can't move. Any step I take is met with a sharp pain as the once complete mirror digs into the bottoms of my feet, and red is everywhere now. I reach out and brush my fingers over the reflections in the frame, staining the web glass with the cherry syrup of my beating heart. And I'm forced to stare into the reflections, but which one? Which one do I focus on? Because there are so many warped, distorted versions, and in the multitude of the broken mirror, which one do I choose?
This one's pretty short. It's called Drowning in Delusion. Deluded into loving you, doused in oblivion, I followed you. Drenched in ignorance, I wept for you. Dripping in agony, I clung to you. Devoted to need, I pardoned you. Divulging in self-destruction, I lost myself for you. Determined, a martyr of desire.
Good evening. My name is Kaya Weems, and I am a junior at Cedar Ridge High School. The poem I'll be reading to you today is called Don't Put All of Your Eggs in the Fairy Tale Basket. Fairy tales say that little girls have to have the right shoe size to succeed. These shoes aren't even meant for regular feet. How do you expect me to fit in these? You came to my door with a shoe of another, saying you were looking for your lost lover. They couldn't even remember her face, didn't even ask for her name. Too busy running their own game. Well, sir, I don't need the glass slipper. She doesn't need the glass slipper. Fairy tales say the little boys need to be big and tough. But my body and mind are only 9. You want me to put my life on the line? For a girl who said to be asleep, you said to wipe my tears because men don't weep. They didn't even care for his feelings. Even after he cried for his dead mother who died at the hands of his own brother. Well, sir, I will not be the knight you want. He will not be the knight you want. Fairy tales say that if you sing a song, all your problems will be gone. I sing to the top of my lungs as tears stream down into my open hand. Where's my flying man to take me to Neverland, to shower me in sprinkling dust and to tell me to believe? When I opened my eyes, my problems still stood before me. They told them, if you whistle while you do chores, creatures will come and save you from your sores. Their sores only got worse, and their voices only got hoarse. Well, sir, Band-Aids don't fix bullet holes, and I don't need your Band-Aids. They don't need your Band-Aids. Fairy tales say the little boys and girls need to marry. I look around my kindergarten classroom for my future spouse. If none of them want me, will I be alone in my future house? My grave will be dug and no one will be there to mourn. I worry that my future is a thing to be scorned. When they tell boys and girls to be ready, when the word pacifier turns into the phrase pacify her, well, sir, my ring finger is better bare, and when I wed is my affair. For the little boys and girls, when they wed is their affair. Fairy tales always end in the happily ever after. Now, I think too much when things go wrong. Will my life still be a happily ever after song? It's just a trick. Anxiety with a constant tick. They want you to think bad of oneself, to sit and stare at the clock on the shelf with their chest heavy and their conscience to know that one day they'll have to go. Well, sir, the damsel doesn't need your distress. The knight doesn't need your dragon. The naive boys and girls don't need your illusions. And sirs, we don't need your fairy tales.
I don't know how I'm supposed to compare to that. Good evening, guys. My name is Faith Litchfield. I'm a junior at Orange High School, and the poem that I'll be presenting tonight is called Pre-Life Crisis. Although my youth is still an ongoing crisis, I've learned to find my peace in the smallest things. One being the optimism of my hands, always willing to stretch its fingers out to catch as much of the hate that it can crumble. Two, serving as the number of people it takes to reach out and say, hey, you're doing pretty darn good considering the cards you've been dealt. And three, the human heart's ability to keep beating after we've done everything to break its rhythm. And I'll tell you, that heart beats pretty darn hard, sometimes a little too hard for people I've learned won't help keep the tempo. But hey, it's all going to be okay. Because out there lies a garden full of white roses, and the wilting ones may not be as easy to spot, but once you smell the aroma of true love, you'll keep chasing it and you'll realize that love tastes pretty good on a silver platter. So open your eyes, because then you'll realize that love is now coming in the shape of a thin semicircle colored with all of our favorites, and the silver platter you feasted upon earlier is now turning into a bowl holding tears, because true love hurts. And I've learned that real life does too. Just because you won't walk away doesn't mean others won't first. But then again, don't rush to defeat what isn't meant to die, because just like number one said, your hands will stretch to crumble the hate, but no matter how much you reach, they will never be limber enough to catch all of the love you want returned and all of the scars that you wish to conceal. But there is always room for them to catch the beauty in simply living. And simply living is unconditional, because on a scale from 1 to 10 on being pessimistic or hopeful, I'm somewhere in between. But the stitches I weave between chaos, love, and taxes. And let me tell you, they're starting to come loose. And I am just shy of a person who loves too much because the efforts I put forth aren't returned. But I can still hate just as much as someone who hasn't discovered the art of simplicity, because simplicity is the most flavorful dish laid out for us to try. And we are all such picky feelers. In front of you lies an array of options and ways to treat people, and while the easiest to stomach may be the cake, take a gander at this beautiful apple that may wash away your worries by simply being kind to the ones that you love. And learn that love doesn't encompass only intertwined fingers and boys and girls, but all who rest beneath a starry sky. And even though my youthful ongoing crisis, where the trees may not look like trees and the clouds still look like croissants, love may still be a little distorted, but the simpler I see, the simpler I will breathe. And hey, in the end, if love seems like it's taken the day off, give some to yourself, because worst come to worst, your reflection will never walk away.
Thank you. Can we give these poets one more round of applause? Without a doubt, you can see the beautiful work that Jaki Shelton Green has begun in Orange County schools. We are forever grateful for the mark that she has left on our district through her authenticity and true belief in our students. She is an advocate for poetry, an ambassador for our youth, and thank you, Jaki Shelton Green, for what you have left on our hearts and our minds in Orange County schools. Ms. Shelton Green, do you mind coming up?
I did not know that I was speaking, but that is not a problem. I am, as the old people would say, so full that these young people have embraced their voices, that they understand the power of utterance. And whether people like what you write or not, you must still speak. Audre Lorde said, "Speak so you can speak again." And I know that these young people, from working with them, that they are on a trajectory to using their voices, to making this one world we have a better place for all of us. So I am very humbled to have witnessed what they're beginning as a legacy for Poet Laureates of North Carolina. So thank you, school board, for your support. Thank you to the superintendent. Thank you to all the teachers and to the parents and to a community that nurtures our children. Thank you.
So it's with our honor, the Orange County School Board of Education proclamation to honor and recognize North Carolina's Poet Laureate, Jaki Shelton Green.
Whereas the Orange County Schools District is a center for culturally diverse learning where all students are educated to their fullest potential, and
whereas Orange County Schools serve as a center of our community that embraces education of all students, including the integration of culture and literary arts, and
Whereas art is integral to Orange County schools and amplifies critical, analytical, and conceptual thinking, adding the creative power of personal, cultural, and lived experience, and
Whereas Jaki Shelton Green has served twice as the North Carolina Poet Laureate and is the first African American and the third woman to hold this prestigious honor, and
whereas Jaki Shelton Green, a lifelong resident of Orange County, a former Orange County Schools student and parent, and a citizen of the world, has a deep personal connection to our local community and rich personal legacy of community service and advancement of the arts, and
whereas Jaki Shelton Green, as an ambassador of North Carolina's arts, has a deep understanding of our state's diverse communities and regions, and advocates passionately for the power of words to transform the learning and expression of our youth. And
therefore, be it resolved that Orange County Schools Board of Education hereby
affirms that Orange County Schools celebrates the arts in all forms,
affirms that Jaki Shelton Green advances our work through her commitment to the power of words and other art forms to enrich the lives of our students and the community.
Affirms that Jaki Shelton Green engages, celebrates, and promotes activities that enhance the presence of poetry in Orange County schools, adopted this of the 22nd of May, 2023. And with that, we have a little plaque. This is a plaque of everything you just read, and I would like to thank the woodworking who helped create this. So this was created in our schools. Thank you.
This is on behalf of the district.
If you wouldn't mind, take a quick picture in front.
thank you very much.
Again, I'd just like to thank Avery Pipkin from the Woodworking in Cedar Ridge for helping us put together something that's a little more special coming from our school district and built in our schools. Thank you. All right. Dr. Felder, do we have any recognitions tonight?
Well, Mr. Atherton, I think we do. We've got quite a few tonight, and so good evening to you, to Vice Chair Purcell, and to the entire board, to all of our students, families, staff, and community members who are joining us tonight. Next, we want to recognize our 13 high school students who were selected to participate in this year's Governor's School. We are proud to recognize a number of our gifted, talented, and enterprising 10th and 11th graders this evening to start the recognitions. So as you can see here on this slide, students across the state are nominated by themselves or teacher for a 4-week intensive and exploratory program where they collaborate and build on the strong foundation they are building in school. So this year's teachers nominated 60 of our students, of whom 26 completed applications for formal consideration. Now, students, what percent of the nominated students completed an application? If you said 43%, you're correct. I see. I'm just trying to get you ready for the Governor's School, but you're already, so that's good. So half of those were accepted. So we're proud to recognize the 13 students who were accepted into the program for the arts or academics this summer. I understand not all of the students could be here tonight, but we're going to recognize them all just the same. And to assist us with doing so is Ms. Latoya Warren Robinson, the district's academically and intellectually gifted AIG facilitator. And so when you are here, when Ms. Warren Robinson calls your name, please come to be recognized by the board and stay for a photo op. Thanks.
Thank you. So I'm going to call the names of those who are with us tonight. We also want to honor those who were not able to join us this evening. Their hard work is to be commended as well. So tonight we have, And I'm going to start first. Kayo Weems. And let me back up. Students, I want to honor your name. If I mispronounce your name, please accept my apologies in advance. Grayson Weissenfeld. Isabel Sutton. Reagan Reevely. Agans. Catherine Latham. Grayson Scott. Kiever. Claire Lazarus. Did I miss anyone who was here this evening? Thank you all. And thank you to your families as well, because I know that this was a tedious process. You all as well, the auditions that you had to do, the essays that you had to write, the teacher recommendations that you had to give, the endless emails that came from, did you nod? The endless emails that came from myself or Miss Desiree Johnson at Orange, or also Mr. Greg Walters at Cedar Ridge. Thank you all. Thank you for your patience. Thank you just for trying, and best of luck to you this summer. Enjoy, have fun, and everything that you wrote in your essays, I hope that it happens. Yes.
You need to thank yourself too, because you're the one sending out all those emails.
Oh, and thank myself as well. That's what you want.
Self-recognition.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. They would like to shake your hand, so. Okay. Thank you.
Congratulations. Congratulations. Have a great time. Congratulations. 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 Great job.
Congratulations to all these students, to again, their families, their teachers, principals, to Miss Robinson, Warren Robinson, to everyone who is supporting them, and to all of the students who endeavored to join this program. We are so super duper proud of your accomplishments and your initiative, and we look forward to learning more when you return from the 2023 Governor's School. So again, let's give them a huge round of applause. All right, so next we want to recognize our National Board Certified Teachers. And so we are beyond grateful and proud for the opportunity to recognize this cohort of National Board Certified Teachers and to provide a reception for them before this meeting. So there were 6 that we recognized tonight, and so Ms. Rhonda Wood is going to come on down and help to lead this recognition. So our last opportunity to bring our National Board Certified Teachers together was in December of 2019. And since then, we have had many of our dedicated classroom teachers invest a huge amount of time and energy to grow in the profession. So again, I'd like to thank Rhonda Wood, our coordinator for beginning teachers, mentor support, and nationally board certified teachers. She supports all 3 groups, and she is here to help us recognize this wonderful group of educators. Ms. Wood.
Thank you, and good evening. This is an honor to stand here before you today to recognize the individuals that received National Board Certification from 2019 until this year. These teachers have worked tremendously hard on this certification. And before I bring up the teachers, I would like to talk a little bit about the process and what it takes to become National Board Certified. So while it looks very nice into 4 components here, it is not a simplistic process. And so the 4 components that the teachers and student counselors have to go through to become board certified, one is the content knowledge, and they have to show their knowledge of their curriculum through an assessment. The second component of National Board Certification is through the differentiation of instruction, and the teachers have to analyze their instruction, analyze their data, and then create lessons to meet the needs of their students. This is evidenced by student work. The third component is teaching practice in the learning environment, and that requires a video. And so they have to video themselves. They have to analyze their teaching and analyze things that they would keep, things that they would change in order to meet the needs of their students. The fourth component is to help our teachers become more reflective practitioners. And so they work on and think through how they collaborate with others within their school, within their district, to meet the needs of their students as well. I asked a couple of teachers who have gone through this process to give us a little words of wisdom, as well as talk through what this process meant to them. And I'll give you a few minutes to just read through from an elementary teacher perspective as well as a high school perspective. And as Dr. Felder mentioned, this is a lot of work. And so going through the process in general, whether we passed it or whether we didn't, this was a lot of work that is required for our teachers and staff to go through. So what's next for Orange County? So this year, we have been able to hold an information session as well as a support session for our folks that are wanting to start their National Board Certification. We hope to continue to do this, even talking with the folks out in the reception area. The consensus is if we have a cohort, if we have others around us to bounce the ideas off of, it holds ourselves accountable, and it's very support structure. The other is our beginner to board. So as Dr. Felder said, I also work with our beginning teachers. And there is from a pilot program session that we could do with our beginning teachers. So when they're in their 3rd year, we could begin talking through and getting prepared for National Board Certification. I surveyed our beginning teachers. This today, I think, was the close of the survey to see if there was any interest. And that's what they would spend their 3rd year doing, preparing for getting videos, looking at data, and beginning to think through that process. If we have teachers that went through the Ed TPA, that's along the same lines of just jumping in and going through that as well. And so we would like to start that in years to come, if possible. All right, so we did have a reception prior to our board meeting, and we did get to meet these wonderful ladies face to face, and it's not just through an email. And we do have one here, and I would like to call her up. Come on, Sherry Thomas, join me. She is our music teacher and fabulous, and also a Teacher of the Year. I think you guys saw her a couple of weeks ago. And so again, we would like to celebrate with her. I told the ladies that I would whistle and cheer so that they could see it on the YouTube tonight. But we are so proud and so incredibly, incredibly proud of these ladies. So thank you.
Okay, wonderful. All right, so at this time, we'd like to recognize our Cedar Ridge and Orange High School Conference Co-Wrestlers of the Year. And that would be Kaden Tatro, 182 pounds, upper weights, and Coach Scott Metcalf, as well as Cedar Ridge High School, and Dillon Heffernan, the lower weight class of 145 pounds, and Coach Spencer Poteet from Orange High School. So if you're here tonight, would you come on down? Yay! Come on forward. We have been privileged to recognize state, regional, and conference winners in many sports this year, and we are glad that you could make it tonight for us to recognize the Orange County Schools, that Orange County Schools swept the top honors for wrestlers at the conference level this year. We had a number of competitors make it to the state finals, and coaches, as you help us briefly recognize these two wrestlers, if you would like to shout out the other individual wrestlers who are here tonight or who were so brilliant at the state finals, we would encourage you to do so. So I turn it over to both of you. All right.
I'd just like to take this time to just thank you guys for recognizing, all these young men and young women that have been here tonight. And, it means a lot that you guys recognize, these young kids. Brief season, how we finished. We finished 23-2 as a team. We finished around 4th place in the state. Dillon was, fortunate enough to win the lower weight Wrestler of the Year. And, Dillon, was going to wrestle at Johns Hopkins University. So he'll continue to wrestle, after he's gone from Orange County. And, it's just been a very privilege to coach this young man. He's a very respectful guy and very good person. Also like to, for our team to stand up. These are some of the wrestlers and managers that, just wanted to come and, support Dillon. And I really appreciate those guys showing up. So thank you.
Thank you.
Right. I just want to thank each member of the board for allowing us to come here tonight in Orange County Schools. It's a great privilege to have this honor. I guess a little bit about our season. We had a great season. We had 24 wins on the year. We had 14 members qualify for the regional tournament, which we hosted this year successfully. And we had 8 members that were all conference and 5 state qualifiers. And we had 2 state placers, including Kaden Tatro here. Kaden had an amazing year. He had 54 wins. 39 of those came by pin, which was amazing. He, of course, was conference wrestler of the year in the upper weights at 182 pounds. Really neat story about Kaden. I met him as a 7th grader. The NC State camp, his mom emailed me beforehand and asked, hey, can he come to the NC State camp? And I was like, well, let me check with him and see. And he ended up coming to camp, and in the team portion of it, he ended up going 5-4 against high schoolers. I was like, wow, this kid's gonna be special if he sticks with it. And he has. He already has over 109 career wins as a junior. So wow. He's had an amazing career. It's been a real privilege to coach him. And I really look forward to seeing what he does his senior year. So thank you again, members of the board. And also if his parents and our coaches could stand up for him. Thank you all for being here for Kaden. Thank you. And thank you, members.
Thank y'all.
Great, thank you all. All right, oh my goodness, so many recognitions tonight. And so next we want to recognize Dillon Matthews, Cedar Ridge High School's honorable mention in the first annual Castle What's Your Angle contest, and woodworking teacher Avery Pipkin. So whether it's for taking trips to the Carolina Panthers, Mr. Pipkin, or winning second place at the recent Skills USA North Carolina Championship in cabinet making, Mr. Matthews, we are all proud that you are accomplishing your CTE program goals. So tonight, please share a couple of minutes about this contest, which has an intriguing name and which you recently attended.
So the whole point of this contest was to get this new machine out to the public. They just released it, and they decided to host this competition. And the other students had about a year and a half to prepare. I told Dillon 2 weeks in advance.
Oh, Dillon, he did that to you?
And I told my class, I said, I want somebody to win this.
Oh.
And he was like, well, I want to build a workbench. And he built it in 2 weeks when everybody else had a year. And he actually got second place in the country.
Amazing.
It was in the United States and Canada.
Oh my.
So he did really good. Dillon also was the state runner-up at the North Carolina State Championship Furniture and Cabinet Making Competition this year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Dillon, what does this mean for you?
I mean, hopefully next year I'll be able to go and get first place in states and go to nationals. My sophomore year is the first year I went to Skills, and I finished 6th there. So for me to come up 4 places from this guy right here helping me out and get through everything. But yeah, hopefully next year I can go to nationals and win states.
Excellent. Well, we have no doubt that you will. And so thank you and congratulations to you. And thank you so much, Mr. Pipkin, for your leadership and support. I can tell he wants to shake your hands. He wasn't leaving without that.
What an honor. Congratulations. Hey, thank you so much. and thank you for the
Wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so May 15th through the end of June is Pride Month recognition in Orange County Schools. So as we shared with the board at the last meeting, the most recent data in 2021 from the North Carolina Safer Schools Division of the Department of Public Instruction tells us that 1 in 4 North Carolina high school students identify as LGBTQIA+, meaning they describe themselves as gay, lesbian, bisexual, or in some other way. We recognize that Pride Month takes place every year in June, but because school ends early in the month of June, lessons and activities for our Orange County Schools Equity Office are being made available for use now. It is our mission. We commit to creating a safe and inclusive learning environment for every student, for each and every student. This recognition also speaks to our ongoing commitment that special days, weeks, or months should ultimately shape our mindset all year long. And we appreciate the work of our Equity Office to promote greater respect for every member of our school community. So here's Mr. Lee Williams II, our Chief Equity Officer, to share an event happening next week as part of Orange County Schools Pride Month recognition.
So we're really excited about this event happening on Wednesday at Cedar Ridge High School and the Media Center. And we've called it Pride in the Profession, where we've gathered some of our folks who are members of the LGBTQIA+ community that work in Orange County schools, from teachers to human resources office, down to some of our professionals that work in our central office, to come and have a discussion, a panel conversation about what it's like to be a member of the community working in Orange County schools and working in education, the things that are going great for me, the things that we need to do better. This is a way to provide some voice and space. We often talk about in education how imperative it is for our historically resilient students to see someone who looks like them, right? Research proves that that can be beneficial. Well, that goes across the board. It's just not only at race. And so what we're hoping for at this event, after we've heard the voices from some of our students, is that in this safe and brave space that our educators will come and speak in, that our students will feel more courageous, will feel the more there's a home and a sense and a place for them in Orange County schools, because our mission and vision is to grow and support every child. So we're super excited about this event, Pride in the Profession, and I have to give a shout out to my partner, Mr. Kumar Sathi, who has really coined this phrase that I think we're going to use until the day that you all get rid of me, which is never. Are we being intentionally inclusive or temporarily tolerant? And that's something we need to hold to. So now we are beginning these conversations. We're going to continue to push to be intentionally inclusive. So look forward to seeing you all on May 24th at 6 p.m. in the Cedar Ridge Library. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lee William II, and that concludes recognitions for this evening.
All right, thank you, Dr. Felder.
Sure.
All right, next we have agenda adoption. I believe there are 2 items from consent that have been requested to be pulled. Policy 5030, facility use, first read, and policy 4342, student searches, and new regulations 4342, student searches, drug detection dogs, procedures, first read. Are there any additional items to be pulled? All right, I would recommend putting those as discussion action items, F and G. Any concerns with that? All right, can we get a motion to approve the modified agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the agenda is adopted. Next, we have our public comments. The Board of Education welcomes public comments which are governed by Board Policy 2310 and North Carolina General Statute 143-318.17. A person wishing to address the board must sign up prior to the board's regular meeting. Comments will be limited to 3 minutes. When the 3 minutes end, the speaker must stop speaking immediately. Yielding time to another speaker will not be permitted. All public comment should be civil and non-disruptive per policy. Board members will listen carefully but will not respond to the speaker. Ms. Purcell, do we have any speakers tonight?
Yes, we have 2. Annabeth Lundberg. Did I think I said that right? I hope I did. Okay.
Okay, do I just begin?
You
Go
may
ahead.
begin.
Okay. As the Honorable Jaki Shelton Green said earlier in this meeting, students need to learn to use their voices to make the world a better place. Whatever side of the political spectrum you are on, folks on this school board know better than just about anyone just how broken our public discourse is. Thank you for sticking in there with us during some acrimonious times. We live in a moment when the loudest and the angriest voices always seem to demand the most attention. It feels like the majority of students are finding themselves completely silenced, giving up their voices and, in turn, their education. The idea of reasoned public debate seems like a quaint memory in our hyper-partisan times. I've got a solution, a way of rebuilding our public discourse from the ground up, and it relies on what evidence has shown to be one of the most crucially effective interventions for training critical thinking, advancing equity, and dealing with the achievement gap. The solution is to have our schools and the folks who are charged with leading them to go all in on policy debate. I started my debate journey during the COVID summer before my freshman year. It changed my life. As an IB student at Cedar Ridge, I can easily say that I would not be where I am today without the experiences and the tools that policy debate has given me. And it has been my sole goal since that day to bring the activity policy debate to Orange County schools. Let me tell you why. Multiple studies have shown that participating in policy debate increases a person's GPA, ACT and SAT scores, and their college acceptance. There are a myriad of scholarship opportunities, great schools including Harvard, Emory, Wake Forest, Kansas, Kentucky, etc. all recruit debate prospects every bit as actively as they recruit four-star athletic prospects. Also, Cedar Ridge is uniquely equipped to start a debate team due to the expertise we have in our own community. In the 2 years that we have instituted the Cedar Ridge debate team, we have made great progress. For starters, we have competed in almost 10 tournaments online and in person, including the Harvard National Debate Tournament and Emory's National Debate Tournament. Cedar Ridge's teams have made it to the eliminations rounds of these tournaments, and they face off against kids from elite schools across the country. At the beginning of this year, we had 20 kids all sign up for debate. However, administration is not doing enough to support such a beneficial activity. It should be a calling card for a school that it cares about producing vocal and capable citizens. A debate team aligns with the school's IB program in addition to being more accessible to all communities. The interest is there, the accessibility is there, but the support of the administration is not. All tournament and travel fees are paid out of pocket by the students, a fact that isolates the message we want to send about the openness of our debate program. Additionally, we were not given the chance to practice outside of the school's 30-minute flex time blocks, which can also be inconsistent at times. Finally, despite all these complaints, which we have continued to share with the administration, there has been little movement from admin to step up and help us. One of the greatest flaws of our generation is our inability to talk and have productive conversations about the status quo without alienating one another. This is a school board's chance to create a legacy of community, education, and increased democratic awareness.
Thank you.
Okay, up next is Lila Rhodes. Okay.
Hi, I'm speaking with Lila Rhodes, and my name is Reagan Reveley. I'm a junior at Cedar Ridge, and as an IB student, I am often expected to be comfortable speaking in front of my peers during presentations as well as class discussions. And as someone who was on the varsity debate team at Cedar Ridge, I have felt very prepared. The debate team teaches you to feel comfortable speaking in high-pressure situations, come up with creative arguments and solutions to problems on your feet, and work together with your peers. These traits are not only beneficial as a student in the International Baccalaureate program, but are ones that I have found beneficial in all areas of my life. And I hope that many more students are able to join this team and get those benefits as well.
Hello, I'm Lila Rhodes, and I joined debate freshman year at Cedar Ridge. It taught me how to public speak, and it increased my confidence at school. Beyond that, being on the debate team increased my confidence in school settings, and it provided me with a sense of community at school. Since it's also a student-led team, I have been given the opportunity to enjoy watching my teammates flourish over the years. Recently, we've been disappointed that the team hasn't been encouraged to expand, and if anything has been limited by the support given by admin. We are a student-run team without the support of the adults around us. Debate has allowed me to reach out beyond my social groups and interact with a wider variety of students. It has also equipped me with better tools as a student, and most importantly, has offered me a better high school experience. Because of the limited resources this year, I haven't been able to debate anywhere close to as much as I was my freshman year. Although I've grown as much as I could with the resources given, I have not been able to compete as much. We want to ask first for just support from the admin more than anything. Debate helps shape me as a student, and it's an opportunity that I think everyone should have. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you both. All right. Next, we have the consent agenda. I believe we'll approve the personnel report as presented and have a second closed session afterwards. So can we get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion with the changes, yes.
Yeah.
Motion to approve with the changes.
Second?
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? All right, first item for our work session, we have a guest speaker, the Orange Partnership for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth presentation.
Good evening, everyone. I want to present to some and introduce to others Guyanne Chambliss. She is going to share information with us tonight about the Orange Partnership for Drug and Alcohol-Free Youth.
Good evening, you all, and thank you so much for having me come before you. Really appreciate it. It was tremendous to hear, and I'm going to get emotional, the incredible work that our teachers are doing and the students how they're performing. And I just want to give another hand, even though most of them have left. It's just incredible. And we all are here because we want the same thing for our kids, and that is to thrive, not just survive, but thrive. So I'm here on behalf of the Orange Partnership for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth. And just to let you know a little bit of information about what we do, why we do it, and who's involved, and especially how we are collaborating with Orange County Schools to support our students and families. Actually, I just realized I skipped a number of our, oh, okay. Did it not show? No, it did not. The first slide that you will get will show a number of the partners that are all engaged as coalition members from the partnership. But why does this matter? What we do is we work to reduce youth substance use and prevent early initiation. Because as I said, we want our kids to thrive. We want them to do well academically, and we know that when substances are involved, it can quickly derail things. And we want them to be able to stay healthy and focused on academics, sports, extracurricular activity without the influence of those drugs. When we look at North Carolina youth risk behavior surveys, and you can see over the past few years, they're administered every 2 years. Of course, COVID kind of made things wonky. What we are seeing in particular, while some things are going down, is a significant increase in the involvement of vaporizers, vapes, electronic vapes. The question is what's being used as a substance, whether it be cigarette, nicotine, or cannabis, because both of those can be put into vapes. So we don't have more current data than 2021, obviously because of COVID, so that does involve the pandemic. We also don't have more specific local data to see what's happening here in Orange County, but we do with some other things. But why does it matter? Because we know that when kids begin using early, they're more likely to develop a use disorder later in life. When we look at those who use alcohol before age 15, they're up to 5 times more likely to develop a use disorder to alcohol. With marijuana, cannabis, if they begin using before age 18, they can be up to 7 times more likely. So early intervention is really important. So for the local piece, I'll explain a little bit more later how we get this information, but Orange County high school students reported that their parents rarely, sometimes, talk with them about different substances. So this is a concern. Where are adolescents getting the information? And how easy is it for youth to access different substances? Cannabis is still not legal, that may change. But when we look at alcohol, most people will think about the store, neighborhood liquor store. What about home? 2 out of 3 youth actually report getting alcohol from the home. And now we have tobacco and vape shops everywhere we look. Beer is also no longer an acquired taste. What we are seeing is that products are being changed to appeal more to young people, particularly with sugars, fruit flavoring, things like that. But it's also the packaging. If you notice this particular product, one is a non-alcoholic beverage, the other one is an alcoholic beverage. The only difference is if you notice the word mix and the way the B is tilted. You gotta look for the percentage of alcohol. When we look at weed, marijuana, I hear all the time, I did it, I was fine. Things have changed since we were in high school, folks, or even younger. 1970s to 1990s, average THC content was up to 4%. Come 2014, it increased to around 12%. But now we're seeing the average being 20 to 24%. When you look at concentrated levels, it can be as much as 99%. This is where the adverse effects kick in. And we are definitely seeing them through EMS calls for service, I can tell you. This is also cannabis. It's synthetic weed made from hemp with high THC contents. I actually brought a sample for y'all to look at. This was bought locally, and it is a Stonio package. One of the things that most people do not realize is that for a novice adult user, somebody who rarely uses, first time maybe, they could tolerate 10 milligrams of THC. But an adult might tolerate 40 to 50 grams of THC. One cookie is 250 milligrams. How many of y'all can cut an Oreo into fourths at least? This is what we're seeing that adolescents and younger are getting a hold of. Not your son's weed, 600 milligrams, that's up to 15 times just in the candy bar. If y'all want to take a look, I'll let you see this package.
Is it just one cookie inside?
There's just one cookie inside?
Two. So Canna Burst, Stony Patch, these are things that we're seeing in our community. I've bought each one of these to do parent education locally. So how do we affect change? The coalition looks to 7 strategies for community change, effective community change, 3 of which are individually focused, 4 of which look at our environment. If you'll notice, the starred ones are the ones that the coalition has opted to focus on. So we have building skills, providing social supports, reducing barriers, enhancing access, changing consequences, getting folks into interventions when possible, and changing policies and rules. The coalition looked at a number of data sets and decided that we needed to look at reducing risk factors, including lack of social supports, limited access to services, poor mental health and coping strategies, and increase those protective factors that will reduce youth use. Connections, life skills, positive peer relations, pro-social engagement opportunities. So how are we collaborating with Orange County Schools? These are just some of the partners that have been directly engaged in partnering, community partners with Orange County Schools. We're looking at, as I mentioned, increasing those protective factors. So after-school programming, life skills group facilitation, mentoring services, parent academy workshops, and tutoring services. We heard earlier about professional development. One of those that's happening is youth mental health first aid for teachers and student support services. There's also some other trainings that we are looking at. Again, thank you. For early interventions, part of that is recognizing when someone might be under the influence of one of these substances, and then increasing that access to early interventions. We also have empowerment programs. We want to empower parents, so we do that through the academy workshops. We include skill building, but also youth empowerment. Matter of fact, if you'll see here, I was with the team just before coming here. The high school team was out in the community doing work. And so we have a high school team and we have 2 teams at middle schools. They rock. I just have to tell you, they rock. Some of the things that we've been doing includes presentations and trainings. We have done the rainbow fentanyl training, also fentanyl that might be in other substances. You see the center slide there, that was actually a collaboration between Orange County Health Department Tobacco Prevention and our ADAPT students at Standback doing peer education for 6th graders. And then we also have done drug trends, not just around fentanyl, but around the vapes, all of these things. And here's some more just peer education. The kids love this in the middle school. So we just did one at Gravely this past week and at Standback previously. So those are some pictures from recent peer education. They make it fun and interactive. As I mentioned earlier, where do youth get their information? There are a number of people who can be influencers. Of course, the parents themselves, coaches, medical professionals, including school nurses, and other trusted adults. So what can you, as school board members, do? We ask you as a coalition to support school, the staff training so that they can better serve our students, support the resources that promote the mental and social emotional well-being of students. I know you have really been working on this. I applaud you for that. Protocols for early interventions that will help keep the kids on track, and also access to protective factors. We know that these work to reduce early onset. I invite you as school board members to be present in our schools. I know some of you are always there. You have kids in the schools too. So thank you for that. It makes a difference. They need that other person. And then get involved. I invite you to be part of the coalition, be part of our collaboration. I know that we have got great collaboration going on in the schools, but you're also community members. You're also parents. I invite you to be part of that. So there's my information, the QR code also if you want to follow us on Facebook or find us online. But do you have any questions for me?
Connie?
Hi. First, thank you so much for coming out today. And as you know, I saw variation on this presentation a few weeks ago, and I see the whole world differently. So thank you so much. And thank you for the way you're engaging our teachers and kids, because they really get it too, and I'm learning from them all the time. I was curious about some other things we can do. You know, I think, have you already done this through our Parent Academy? And are we getting the participation that we need? And then the second question I have is, are there any legislative initiatives that you know of to tighten the controls, labeling, and access to the synthetic THC, which is completely legal? And marijuana is not legal, but the synthetic THC is one you could buy anywhere. So those two questions.
So let me just say, thank you for that, both of those. Yes, I have been invited by Orange County Schools to present to Parent Academy. Do we have parents that always come out? It's hard sometimes, particularly transportation, as we all know, is an issue. Timing is also everything. Sometimes it's what you don't know, you need to know, that parents don't come out until they see it. And so having these engagements, reaching parents wherever and whenever we can, whether it be by social media, through the school website, Parent Academy sessions, would love to do workshops because I love doing workshops. And I'm all about building the skills to have those conversations, but making it virtually even later on, and maybe hearing from parents. How can we reach them? How can we better reach them? I think that would be very valuable. When it comes to legislatively, I can tell you two things. One, I think there's not enough conversation going on about what these products are, what the harms are, and we need to start that community conversation. The second piece is, in North Carolina, we do not match the federal age for purchasing tobacco products. It's 21 federally, but in North Carolina, it's still 18. Are the stores even checking IDs? More than likely not. Maybe, hopefully. So we want to do some data analysis on that, some surveys. I would say that there is a movement at the state level, and I invite the school board to consider looking at a resolution in support of raising the age to 21, or as an individual, perhaps looking at writing a letter in support of it. We advocate that we want protective measures in place to protect our kids. What does that look like? That would be a first step. The other key piece that many don't know is, in North Carolina, you need a license to sell a hot dog, but you do not to sell tobacco. So people can sell out of their homes. And when we look at the tobacco and vape stores, they're selling the hemp products too. And the hemp, synthetic weed. So I hope that answers your question. I know that there are resources at the state level that can provide some of that information if you want more. Anybody else have? Yes, ma'am.
Sarah?
Well, yeah, I just want to thank you for this entire presentation. I know the packaging and the one that you passed around, I remember going to a partnership meeting at some point a few months ago and seeing that, and like immediately when my kids came home, like talking to them about it, because the thing that, something that struck me there was it's not just to appeal to those kids, it is easily mistaken by toddler siblings as a cookie. And it can be very dangerous. And so, yeah, I think what you said about people may just not know what they don't know. Maybe there are some smaller ways, like one pager that can go home in the school weekly email or something. Are you about to get out of one pager?
We actually have been promoting some things, and maybe they're not quite what you're looking for, but we can certainly do more of these. This is, let's talk about weed with facts on the backside, commonly stated things, and then facts from a science base. This is our parent handout that shows the similarity between actual shower patch and the stony patch with information on the back. If there's a way to send this home to every parent through Orange County Schools, we'd love to do that. And then, because it is summertime, we have something similar about alcohol and to secure it. So
That's great. I would love for us to figure, even just the image, it's that image and then the information about the levels of THC that have changed that I think people are just, I think many people are unaware of that. So I think that would be really helpful to share.
I wanted to say thank you for letting us come and just share something with you. These are what we call tchotchkes, no pun intended, because they're for keys, that our ADAPT high school youth did last year for Prom Promise. And they wanted the message be about the influence with a message on the back side. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is a product that our high school team created last year for prom, part of their Prom Promise campaign, to be above the influence, and those who signed a pledge got these, and on the back side it had a message. And so this is something that the high school teams created. And I just wanted to say thank you and provide these. And I can hand these out too. And just, is that okay?
Can I ask another question? Unless somebody else has another.
No, go ahead.
I remember that another thing that I learned at some point from you or your organization is that, the teams, I think it's the high school ADAPT teams that go out and test whether they're carding at convenience stores and where not, places like that. And that the businesses had gotten a little bit more lax about that over the course of the pandemic. Do you have any recent data? Has that improved at all since you've gone out and started doing more checks and things are back to normal?
Thank you for that question. With alcohol, we have, and when we first started doing it way back when, we found that only 35% of the stores in Hillsborough were checking ID. Right before the pandemic, the average rate of those clerks that were verifying the age of young appearing persons was 94%, so that was a huge increase. Then during the pandemic, moratoriums, and it dropped down to around 50%. We just started renewing again, and we're seeing already an increase through education with merchants, back up to around 64, 65%, so we're getting there. We have not yet started doing tobacco surveys, but that's in the works.
Excellent. Thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Carrie.
I just want to say thank you as well, Gayan, because it's really great information for us, and I really appreciate the different levels of collaboration you have with the community and students and families. It really makes a difference.
Well, and thank you, and I have to say thank you to Dr. Dreyer, Dr. Felder, all the support staff. We're also working with Mr. Daniel Kearns Pickett to work on the mental health piece, because that's an underlying root cause. So we recognize that. So lots of things in the works.
So I have one question, and you probably know what it is.
Yes, sir.
The most common question I get as a board member from parents are the fear of fentanyl over anything else. Is I'm worried that my child's going to get exposed to fentanyl. And I had asked about this in one of the partnership meetings, and I just thought it would be a good question to share because parents do listen in and try to understand what their options are and, just try to understand what they should be concerned with about fentanyl.
Well, and thank you. Yes, fentanyl is very scary, and it will continue to be scary. One, it's like that. It's deadly. When we think about it, every person should be able to carry Narcan because you never know where you're going to need it. That's the anti-reversal for those who are not aware. What is happening in our community, and I'm sure that Mr. Richmond would be able to speak even more so to it from a law enforcement standpoint. We're not seeing adolescents getting a hold of fentanyl, but it can be laced in anything. The conversation parents need to have is if it doesn't come from a doctor, don't buy it online. That you don't know what you're going to get. And there are people, matter of fact, I will tell you that Snapchat is being sued as one of the main sources online. 75% of the adolescents, and I'm trying to remember the exact age, but it's under 21, of the deaths involved were purchased through Snapchat. Parents need to know that this is an access point and that they need to have those conversations. If you're trying to purchase something online for anti-anxiety medication, depression, we go to the doctor. We don't buy it online. So.
Thank you so much. We appreciate it.
So, thank you, and I hope that doesn't change. I know that we are going to be seeing other changes. So, we keep working. Thank you.
Thank you,
Have a wonderful
Diane.
night. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ms. Chambliss. Appreciate you.
All right, next we have the Orange County RFQ and Facility Conditions Assessment Project Overview and Update.
Good evening, Chair Atherton, Vice Chair Purcell, members of the board, Dr. Felder. This evening, we'd like to provide an update regarding the authorized facility condition assessment that was done to create the RFQ project that we have. As we plan for future upgrades, improvements throughout our school system, an RFQ was done to focus on 3 areas. The first, comprehensive facility condition assessment, was done. Within part of those 3 things, an optimization plan of existing space utilization, and finally, examining prioritization models, benchmarking best practices and scenarios for both school districts. Once the RFQ was approved, and it was approved in March 2023, we brought Woolport on board. With us today, virtually, is Jessica Goodell from Woolport, as well as David Sturts. Jessica Goodell serves as the project manager at Woolport, and David Sturts serves as the educational master planner. I'm going to turn things over to Woolport to dive into the RFQ a little bit and provide some information and some updates.
Good evening. Should I go ahead and share my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Let me call that up. All right. Good evening. Thank you for having us. Let's see. Come on. Here we go. My name's Jessica Goodell, and I'm the project manager here at Woolport. David and I will be talking to you tonight just a little bit about us. We've been performing and leading projects like this across the country and doing a lot of them together for at least 10 years. So David and I are really familiar with this kind of work. We're familiar with working with each other, so it's a real seamless team. And we're really excited to get this project going for you guys. high level project timeline. Here we are in May, we're mobilizing. We had our kickoff meeting back in April. We're gathering information from the school district. We're going to start digging into that and that data and that information and start doing some benchmarking in the early summer. Starting in June, there's a really large data collection effort for both the facility condition and the educational adequacy assessment. So we'll send teams of folks in there to collect data across all of the schools so we can better understand their condition and how spaces are being used in those facilities. Once we have all that data, we'll start working through some options and then finally recommendations on your optimization plan. And then also part of this is project planning. It's where we take the information from the options and the recommendations, and we actually package the assessment data up and the deficiencies identified into projects so that the district has a better way of executing projects and planning their work moving forward. We're going to really focus on the outputs of this assessment and this project more so than the nitty-gritty details. I think it's a little more informative for you. But we're going to have condition assessment data. We'll have educational adequacy results. We'll have those projects that we're going to build in the Brightly predictor. And then you'll have your final optimization plan that kind of wraps it all up. A little bit about the facility condition assessment. One of the outputs is a facility condition index. Facility condition index is a metric that we use to compare dissimilar facilities. So it's the cost to repair the building divided by the cost to replace it. So this gives us a percentage, and it gives us a way to compare dissimilar facilities. A larger school like a high school is going to have more need inherently than a smaller school like an elementary school, but it doesn't mean it's in worse condition. So this is a way for us to get to the bottom of that and start an apples to apples comparison on what we may want to do with those facilities. The educational needs assessment, we start looking at how the school is used. Is it supporting the programs that need to be there? How is teaching being done? A lot of schools were built, quite a while ago, and education has changed significantly in the last 20 and 50 years. So how are the spaces being used, and how can we use them better to serve our students? One of the metrics that we look at and compare is the facility condition index that I mentioned, as well as building utilization. So how many kids are in that school versus how many kids you can put in that school. So this is just an example of a similar school district, and each bubble is, an elementary, middle, and high school. The size of the bubble is the size of the school. So the purple high schools are bigger than the elementary schools. And generally speaking, districts like to be within a certain target range. So you don't want to have underutilized schools. You don't want to have overutilized schools. So you can see this district had a lot of schools that were underutilized and very few that were in their kind of target range, which is generally 80 to 100%. Similar with your FCI, you don't want a bunch of bad schools. So you want to keep them down here, maybe under 30% is what this district decided. And that range varies based on clients. And so then we start looking at this, and when we start getting into the optimization planning, we say, how can we get more of these schools into this optimal range, move them to better utilization and better conditions? So that kind of helps focus our efforts there. I'm going to turn it over to David to talk a little bit about demographics.
Good evening. And when we look at the utilization, we're looking at it not just individual school by individual school. We're looking at individual schools, how by geography, where they feed their students from. And so we'll want to look at where the kids are coming from. We've already got some enrollment data. I've actually received quite a bit of data on Friday, so thank you to the team for that. And starting to comb through that, we'll plot where students have been living, where they've been attending, and what we call a live-attend ratio. So we get an idea about choice behavior across the region and how those choice behaviors might relate to different factors such as proximity, building conditions, and otherwise. And you can get sort of a heat map of where certain schools are. You have more of a flight from, and where some you have more an attraction to, and from what particular geographies. Of course, all the individual student data is muted for that, so it's nothing identifiable. And if we get to numbers too low, we certainly block that out, so there's no risk of of any kind of identity leaking through that. But so we're familiar with using the data, but it does help us get an idea at a district level. And we're doing this for the entire county, where sort of the choice in to not just the district, but also charter schools and other school data that we have as well. We can see physically geographies where we have different flights to different schools. Next. And then when we develop the recommendations here, the options, and finally the recommendations, one of our mantras here is that no one data set is a dictator. We're not just looking at condition and trying to, if it's broke, fix it. If we're not just looking at utilization, if you're overcrowded, you need to build capacity. It's not one-to-one. You look at the whole picture to see if we're within the school itself, the region, the district as a whole. How are we in terms of our utilization? How are we in terms of our condition? How are we in terms of this choicing behavior? How does that all align at the individual school level and at the regional level with the historical enrollment and its trends in housing and the future enrollment and its trends in housing? Looking at that data to develop what we think is a comprehensive plan that is moving you forward on warm, safe, cool, dry, and educational adequate facilities for every student every day in a way that's materially possible. We're not here to create a wish list you cannot possibly attain and afford. We will start with what is absolutely needed and aim towards that. And then as we get through options development, looking at what the budget situation has been, what it's probably going to be in the future, we're going to display the full set of needs and then make recommendations for you for the next 5 to 10 years based upon probable budget allocations there. But you will always have that ultimate assessment of the condition and adequacy of your buildings and the utilization to push towards as funding becomes available. So the plan is meant to be actionable, and it's meant to be living as situations change. You still know what the end targets are, what the variables are, and you can track those over time.
I'll open up to any questions for you guys. Yeah.
Yes, it's Bonnie, you're.
Let Sarah go first.
Go ahead, Sarah.
Great. Yes, thank you for this presentation. I think the one thing I'm curious about how it sort of fits into the model you use is the adequacy piece, because like we know that many of our buildings have classroom sizes, for example, that are much smaller than a modern classroom size.
Sure.
But that's different than sort of like, is the structure holding together? So how does that fit into the FCI equation or somewhere else in your process?
Sure. And the FCI, there's a bright line there. The FCI, it lives on its own, and adequacy lives on its own. And I perhaps overuse the analogy of binoculars. You look through both lenses when looking at the buildings, not just one. So for adequacy, for example, some of the measures that we used there is we sent some standards for review for your team. And those included not just a list of class types that we see as standard for modern 21st century education, just art schools, art classrooms in elementary schools and middle schools and high schools and STEM classrooms, and what those things are in terms of a square foot per student. So you actually have enough room to move around and teach and do multimodal instruction and not just have a sit and get, because you can't move stuff around. Mobility of furniture, adjacencies of things like the front office to a main entry, things that some what we call critical basics for the education. And you're right, your legacy buildings, which is a nice way of saying old, don't typically have a lot of those things, or at least to modern standard. And so that has to live on an island in its own to look at, okay, the building nuts and bolts condition and the adequacy. When looking at your capital investment strategy, we want to make sure that when you make a significant capital investment in a facility moving forward, we know that that means you're baking yourself in and the students into that building for decades to come, because you're not going to make a major investment and then walk away right away, unless you absolutely have to. And knock on wood, that doesn't happen. So when making that investment, if the educational adequacy is very low And yet you need to keep this facility where it is, how it is, for whom it serves for the foreseeable future. Then if you're going to make that investment, what we're going to look at is what is the best way to make an investment to bend the arc of those facilities to be more adequate. So maybe that involves, instead of just in a practical case, spending a little bit more to build an addition onto a school so that when you're renovating classrooms, you can do 3 classrooms become 2. And remake some of the interior. Maybe that means a moderate renovation to the condition becomes a major renovation, because when you're fixing everything and going into the interior walls, you might as well spend a little bit extra and make it a much more adequate facility for the next 30, 50 years.
Great. Thank you for that clarification. That's really helpful, and I'm glad you're doing that.
I have a follow-up to what you asked, Sarah, and it's one of the questions I had is, one of the challenges that we have all the time is not so much the room is too small, is when we're looking at utilization of a building, it doesn't account for state mandates. Like you may say this room can hold 35, but the state says you can only have 17 in there. Or we have inclusion classes where there may be only 9, or CTE, or pick your special area.
Sure.
And so the question is, how does when you're looking at this, account for state requirements where it says, yes, this facility is at capacity based on the state mandates that says you can't have more than X in this room or Y in this room, and how do you account for that?
That's a great question. Capacity can be an art form, and
Yes.
trying to distill what it means. And we're going to look at it 2 ways: a program capacity, and then a square footage based capacity. And the program capacity is what you're talking about.
Yes.
And if there's any thou shalts in your state or board policy, state policy or board policy, that becomes the first filter for what that program capacity can be. Special education room, if your limit is 10, 12, it's 10 or 12. If it's a certain amount per square foot, then it's a certain amount per square foot. First, that's it. Done. End of story. And we have some suggestions for that in the standards, just some blanket, standards that we will then have the district and work with the district to update to make sure that the capacity standards are compliant with your actual instructional standards per state and board policy. And then that's it. That becomes the definition for program capacity. The square footage then, base capacity, looks at that and says, fine, but in a typical classroom, based on what we would apply nationally, we would say you need 37.5 square foot per student in a regular classroom as a basis. Okay, so your program capacity could be equal between 2 rooms, but if there's a 300 square foot difference, you may have a 700 square foot room and a 1,000 square foot room. The square footage based analysis will show that as being practically very different, and that's going to have a practical impact on what you can and cannot do instructionally.
All right, thank you. Bonnie?
Yeah, thank you for coming out here tonight. I have a couple questions, but the base one is, we have some other initiatives that are going on right now. We are starting a redistricting process that we hope to have done by the end of the year. There's also some schools, like we're thinking about closing one of our elementary schools so we can get repairs done to it and move the kids into another school for a short term. And how can you help us, or how does what we're doing link into what you're doing? And I don't know how else to ask that question.
No, that's quite all right, Jessica. I'm just going to roll with it.
Yeah,
That's
keep
okay.
going.
The sooner we have the preliminary data that you're looking at and considerations that you're considering, the better. Because especially when it comes to redistricting, sort of the order of operations that I think about in this work is, first, do your facilities master plan to make sure that you are certain which facilities are the best investment for your long term. condition, adequacy, utilization, all things considered. Once you have that portfolio strategy set, then create boundaries to support it. Few things work in the ideal sequence all the time. And so we can work very much in parallel to this to a point. But the facilities master plan can consider, we're going to be open to question. We have an all things on the table kind of approach in looking at different options. And so options may include a configuration change to consider in a particular area, or a boundary change might be part of an option, or a feeder change, partial or otherwise, to help balance out enrollment. In brief, we want to work hand in glove with you on this. And so what I would propose is that we work with the district to get a handle on what those considerations are now, and then to understand what your meeting schedule is for this process, and then to plug into that, at least in providing updates back and forth between, so that we are informing each other about where we are in the process at a very minimum throughout, and so that the planning work can be done without any surprises.
Okay.
You have another question?
I do. Maintenance. We have a small, ridiculously hardworking maintenance team, and we have 13 very old schools. And are you going to provide us any comments on how understaffed we are in maintenance?
Oh, that's a good question. We can do that as part of our benchmarking analysis. We can benchmark that against some industry standards. I actually did that for a school district, I guess right before COVID, and they were able to, the maintenance folks were able to justify hiring a few more people. So we can compare that and include that in the benchmark study if that's something you guys want. But yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, there are standards on
There's standards
square
to match
foot
that up.
per person.
Yeah. Same thing with like custodial, that kind of thing.
Great, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, thank you very much. We appreciate y'all's time tonight, and look forward to seeing the report.
All right, thank you so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the reassignment planning update.
Here we go. Just recently regarding reassignment, the operations team held 2 virtual town halls just 2 weeks ago to approximately 125 folks or so, and provided an overview of the reasons for reassignment, current and future school capacity needs, project timeline and process, ways to get involved. Those who were on the call had an opportunity to ask questions, send their questions in. We're going to turn those questions into an FAQ no later than June 15th for folks to be able to tune in to see and be even more familiar with the information that was presented. Working very closely to that work and in developing this information, Ms. Catherine Mao, who I will turn things over to talk about the details of those town halls and to look into next steps as well.
Well, hi, everyone. Thank you for having me here tonight to discuss a student reassignment update. I'm hoping to take you through August with our specific plans and the specific things that we're doing. The first slide I always want to show is our policy. This is what everything is based on. We don't go rogue. We follow the policies and the procedures. The virtual town hall meetings were a lot of fun, and we had, not counting all of our facilitators, about 125 people. and they submitted questions throughout the process, and I'm still getting a couple. We are hoping to close that form the end of the month and then have an FAQ on the website. We will also come up with a way that we can constantly be taking information from families and interested community members. We just, we'll have to update the FAQ, and we'll come up with a specific plan. So we had some commonalities. Now these, again, it was a very, very small sample of people who participated, and I highly suspect more than one question was from the same person, just word for word repeated a couple times. So this is to be taken with a grain of salt. However, we had about 8 questions. That was the biggest group, about grandfathering students. The next group was very concerned about expanding or creating special programs, or allowing children to stay at a school that has a special program if they're reassigned somewhere else. Bus transportation is very important to this community, and many people had very specific questions about the bus. We had people concerned about the reasons for reassignment, and Patrick did a great job explaining all of those reasons, but we do need to have more detailed information on the website, talking about what the process will be. And then there were some questions about students who live in, or go to school with one group of friends, and then their neighborhood is maybe one of the few that is not reassigned or is assigned to a different school. And that was never the plan. We are going to definitely realign the feeder patterns so that there are no individual neighborhoods going to a school, so that people will be able to go with their friends. I can't guarantee much about that, but this is something that's very important, and I definitely will make sure that any plans that are submitted can contain feeder pattern alignment, because it's vital. So school principals have nominated people to participate on the Student Reassignment Committee. We have a date, June 13, that we are meeting with the committee, and we're having operations staff and our consultants from ORED, that's Thomas Dudley from the NC State ORED group, to help us provide input on the specific goals of the plan. And then the members of the community organizations identified by the board in August and finalized in September will be asked to meet in July at a separate session. And I just kind of rearranged this slide. I wanted to always point out that our guiding questions are the center. We want people who are going to speak up for those most impacted. We want to advocate to eliminate disparities, communicate potential negative impacts, and represent communities who are most impacted. And principals have nominated various people from their schools or their parent community who meet those criteria. Another way that we are going to get information is by doing surveys. And again, the 4 pillars of student assignment will be asked to be ranked, and we'll also ask for other concerns and ideas and some questions that they have about reassignment. We're going to do phone surveys, we'll do an email survey. We'll always have a link on the website to capture as much information as possible. We're trying to figure out a way to get the survey sent home either as a QR code or somehow included in the final report card, because we really want all of our students' families to have a chance to participate in that. We'll have the surveys in multiple languages and the formats. So this is the exciting part. We've got our 4 pillars. We have student achievement, stability, proximity, and operational efficiency. And those are the pillars of assignment that the board have identified. And so what we're hoping to do is identify those pillars that are most important to the community and create plans that reflect those things. So for example, using just the very, very, very small amount of data we received at the town halls, we have a concern for special programming, concerns for grandfathering and feeder patterns, and concerns about bus transportation. However, we have not had those community meetings, and we're going to have another town hall a bit later. We just need a lot more information. And so once we get the community input, the board input, staff input, surveys, community groups, we're going to start seeing things stacking up in certain ways, and we will make plans that reflect those things. For example, we would have, it seems that stability right now is very important, so we might try stability and student achievement as the focus of a plan. The board may specifically ask us to develop a plan specifically in service of one of the 4 pillars. Or you might say, please give us a plan that has 25% weight for each of those things. And that's your decision. And that would be one plan that we submit for your approval. And that's the fun part. I can't wait to dig in. I know someone's going to throw something at my head, but I'm very excited about this. And we updated our timeline a bit to be a little bit more reflective of the process as it is now. So when we showed you this last August, there have been some changes. So we already did the retreat where we're reviewing assignment policies and some legal updates. We had those town hall meetings on May 9, May 11, and I understand that you'd like to add something, maybe June 13 and 14. So we'll try to get those in with our other meetings, and it'll just be input fest and very, very, very many chances for people to contribute. We'll be doing the surveys in June through August, and we'll be analyzing the data. We'll be doing our data analysis and some first drafts, August and September, and having some public feedback in October, board review November. Also in November, we'll have some second drafts prepared, hopefully the board approval in December 2023, or in December of this year. And then the notification will begin in January. And it's very important that we have these activities planned, help parents and kids get to know their new school so that they're feeling welcome. In previous districts, we've done field trips one day if you're getting reassigned, or just popsicle night. You know, it could be anything from something small to a great big to-do, whatever the board and the community is interested in. And so I'll stop raving on about reassignment, but thank you for giving me the chance. And please ask any questions or give comments that you might have.
Bonnie?
I have a couple of questions, but let me start with your point on special programming, because I'm sure you're following Durham's redistricting, and the big question that parents are raising is disparities in their original school and the school they're going to, and whether they're going to have the same programs. So are we doing anything as part of this process to profile the programming differences across our schools?
Well, it's my understanding that the board chose not to expand any of the special program offerings. We will attempt to figure out how we can best serve those families who are in the dual language program. There's also been talk of possibly opening the program up to the district. There are various issues, but I understood that that was not something that was going to be part of this. High school is smaller, and it's not necessarily a concern about the.
My question was more basic. It wasn't just about dual language. It was about, in general, looking elementary, middle, high school, and are we offering the same programs in all our schools? You know, and we know, like, we have a global school and a STEM school.
Oh, I apologize for misunderstanding.
You know, and again, this is the Durham parents really.
Oh, for sure. And that would be the pleasure of the board. If that's something you want us to explore, we certainly will. Just provide that direction, because I know there are some schools that offer different things, and it's at especially, well, there's high school and then at elementary. And what are the special programs really doing, and how different are they really, aside from having a name? I think it's worth investigating.
Sarah?
To me, the place where there's the piece about like legitimately different programs, but the piece where that most fits is in introducing students to their new school, more so than, I'm just not sure what the profiling idea would accomplish exactly.
It's just about looking across our schools and see if there are disparities in the services, so we can get ahead of this if parents raise concerns about it. And it could be extent of AIG services once a week, 5 days a week.
Okay.
Right, that kind of stuff.
I think that's a good example. So levels of sort of services or something.
Yeah.
There is something though, once you change that example, once you rebalance the schools,
yes,
the future services are not going to look necessarily like the past
Well,
services.
exactly. But I think we want to understand that. So where are we, not just with students today, but where are we with services today, and how will we have to
will they
change them
look?
as we rebalance the enrollment? I mean, I think it's a really good thing for us to be doing.
Yeah. So is part of this process, because I had a similar question regarding just sort of like sheer numbers of teachers, and there would need to be teachers moving school to school because of the number of classrooms. Is that all also happening simultaneously?
Well, the teachers will follow the students for sure. And so I'm sure there are some staff members who will be moved to a new location. I can't say right now because we haven't really started creating any plans. But when we have a school that's at 125% utilization and one that's at 50, we're going to move students and they'll need teachers.
But so that allotment process and deciding about the staffing for the schools, would that be done sort of simultaneously with this or afterwards?
Probably a little of each. As we're doing it, we'll probably notice that we're going to have an issue at school A. And so then as that's taken care of, we'll make sure the positions are allotted correctly.
Just to sort of add on to that, but that wouldn't be something that like the public isn't going to weigh in on what teachers move, like.
Oh, no.
I mean, that's going on behind the scenes and that is a big component of it,
Right.
to realize that teachers are going to have to move as schools population shift.
Yes.
But that's going on behind the scenes. That's not something that the stakeholders will be involved with shaping.
No,
Right.
no, that's an HC thing. And look how excited they are.
Sarah?
I mean, to that point, obviously the allotment process and everything is an HC thing, human capital thing. There is, both for the students, but also for the teachers, there's the human element of this and the side of it about that teacher deciding whether to stay in the school system if they have to move
for sure.
buildings. And I think that there is, it seems to me like there's opportunity there. And I'm not sure who the right parties are, principals to be involved or who, to help shepherd for all of their people who might be impacted, shepherd their experience, and sort of proactively think about that.
So yes, and thank you for bringing that up, and we'll welcome any suggestions or ideas. There is a significant staff contingent on the reassignment committee, and
They will bring that up.
definitely hope that we all come to, they'll have some great ideas that I don't have.
Bonnie?
I think, I'm getting the impression that you're very excited about modeling the data, which makes me really excited. So thank you for that. Am I reading that correctly?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, good. I don't believe our options are unlimited, right? There are really, we have some baseline options and then we can tweak it to balance out the 4-pillar priorities.
Well, realistically.
Yes. So I'm curious if there's a time where we might get an early peek at what the baselines, what some, 3 or 4 baselines or 3 more options might look like. And then with that, how do we work with the county's facilities plan?
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing is looking at the plans based on the pillars. It's one thing to say we want 25% this, 50% this, but when you see the actual plan and who's moved in that, it'll make a difference. And so we definitely will be sharing all the data we're receiving with you. I'm not sure the exact means of that. That's not something that I'm involved in right now. The county facilities study with Wilpert, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah.
So I have shared that data with them about the project, the things that David was talking about in the meeting. He definitely received that in a big bundle on Friday, and it was huge. So he's going to work through that. But what it's really going to tell us is, how do I explain? It has, in order for the facilities study to, the facility study is more a capital issue, and this school needs to be rebuilt, and this one needs this, and this one needs that sort of classroom space. So in a way, it's very separate because we need to do the reassignment now. We don't have any capital set aside to build all new schools, and we don't meet the SAPFO thresholds for overcrowded schools. So it may help us reassess, in the short run, it may help us reassess the size and the capacity of one of our schools. For example, if they say all the classrooms are too small, you can't fit more than 20 people, then we would take that into account, but really it's two separate projects.
I guess what I'm worried about is having to reassign a student and then in 2 years reassign them again, because we've made some kind of change to our facilities configuration. That's really my concern is.
Absolutely, and that's why we were hoping, that could get ironed out before we do that. So if you are wanting to change a program or if you're wanting to close a school, we would need to know that so we don't have to go right back to the table.
I just have to say, I don't think that's realistic because we're not going to have bond money to go rebuild a school or to move a school. So I think at earliest, it would be like 10 years. But
hopefully not that long.
well, we got to go through the bond process and also get the results back. So, but it's, we definitely don't want to remove anybody, but I don't think that's like on the short-term horizon.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree.
Sarah?
Just a piece of feedback for your consideration in the process. I think the activities for students and families at their new school is going to be really important, as I've talked about a number of times. I think if you wait until May to do that, you're going to have a lot of kids leaving the system because they can have that kind of engagement from a charter school or where a private school in February.
Oh, that's a good point.
And they can apply in February. And so this, even if some of it is over the summer, right, popsicles over the summer, like some of this needs to be much more immediate to calm people's fears about the unknown.
Sure, because the parents will miss their friends too, just like the kids, and that's a really good point. Thanks.
Yeah, I want to highlight that I'm seeing the opposite effect. People aren't aware that we're doing this. And I just have some recommendations to try to help that. One is an in-person town hall. I've gotten lots of feedback. They don't have internet. They don't have a place to go to do this. And we've talked about making sure we do a balance of that. The other thing is, I think on our website, we need to have a dedicated menu that says redistricting or however we want to put it, so it's prevalent, people can click on it. I know we have it on the quick links at the beginning, but I'm talking menu that everybody can get to. It's got a permanent link and you can get to all the information, see what's next, the timeline. This is wonderful to see so people can kind of get a feel for what to expect. I think we should include the material in the school level messaging that happens weekly, and then also see about and be invited to a PTA meeting or other meetings that we could share this. Because I feel like last time that this occurred, you were not here, but me and Ms. Smiley were there, and I think the number one thing was just trying to get the word out and trying to connect with as many people, because, as soon as somebody heard, you knew it, because we were notified that, hey, I hear this is going on. How do I get more information? And I think the more we over communicate on this, the better. And I think it's one of those that, a lot of people are asking why we're doing it and they don't understand. And, even we have, charter schools saying we're doing this because we're over capacity, and that's just not true. We are not over capacity. We need to rebalance our schools. So anyway.
Oh, no, that's great. Definitely. We'll update that website. All right, well, thank you, everyone. Have a good evening.
All right, you too. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Update on AL Standback Accessibility Playground Project.
Yes, about 3 weeks ago, I had an opportunity to step in a meeting about this fabulous project at AL Standback and learn about its ongoing work. Back in 2018, the Board of Education approved this recommendation to add an accessible playground at Standback. About 60 grand was raised between capital funding and the school to get this done. And Standback was chosen for a number of reasons. One, because of the number of students they have on campus with adaptive and accessibility needs, as well as creating an outdoor space that they did not have for them as well. In addition to the opportunity for our students at Standback to use, we also are creating a space outside of school hours for the community to have access to as well, and allow this accessible piece to work outside of school hours and on weekends too. Mr. Patrick Florence, who has been working closely with all stakeholders to pull this project together and on the design and implementation, will speak to you all directly regarding the details of the project, where it is, and its status.
Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you, Dwayne. Thank you for the opportunity to talk about this. Yeah, as mentioned, about 3 weeks ago, we met on site with CRA. We engaged the stakeholders, the special needs teachers, the special needs administrators, staff, operational staff, and walked the campus and identified what we thought was the best area. In your packet, you have a map identifying what we've made that decision, or what we would select as the best place to place the playground for a number of reasons. A lot of it has to do with infrastructure, accessibility, that sort of thing. Initially, the budget, or what we identified or told that we could work with, was about $150,000. 2 weeks ago, we met with Josh Hammond of Cunningham Recreation, which has an office in Charlotte and deals with a lot of school districts with design and project management of playgrounds. They're a distributor for game time equipment, which I think Mr. William Perry can elaborate on some of the equipment that's been used and purchased. So in that meeting, we identified about 5 areas that we wanted to talk about. This is not just a playground. This is a learning area or an interaction area, and that was very important to incorporate into that design process. CRA conducted this meeting in their office. What we talked about were traditional play areas. You've got merry-go-rounds, traditional swings. Swings have changed tremendously because of liability and potential for injury. They're still swings, but there's so many safety factors built into them that it becomes pricey. But it is safe, and it is adaptive to the group that it's catering to. So we talked about the traditional play areas, the learning areas, and we've incorporated, you've got in that same packet a rendering from Ken Redfoot. So it was drawn by an architect, not by some of our staff. And conceptually talked about the play areas, a music garden, a butterfly garden, shade structures, so families could come in with their special needs kids, have a day there, a dedication area, because there's some history within the site and within the location. So there's the opportunity to memorialize some of the things there. Also, because this is a special needs playground, potentially, talk of surface coverings, fall areas. Rubberized coatings are $25 to $27 a square foot versus concrete, which is $10 or $12. So a big cost factor there, but very necessary for the implementation, creation of the playground. And then the design itself, Cunningham will provide some CAD drawings to CRA as they have already, and they will continue to develop a prototype or a model that we can take a look at. Just from that initial meeting and talking about the things we'd like to incorporate in this 6,600 square foot area, we came up with a budget of about $200,000 for cost proposals. However, the big caveat there is that's retail prices for all the equipment that we're looking at. And that is no considerations of variables or alternates that we might use. But it's conceivable that we could stay within 150,000, but the reality is probably will exceed that. So we want to prepare you as the board to be ready to anticipate that and to participate in the design process as we go forward. And we feel like we could get CRA to move this along and have something that could be put out for bid in 90 days or so. And that's where we're at. So we're just enlisting or soliciting your, or making you aware that there's going to be some big cost proposals and some input on this design.
So I'll just remind the board that the original amount of 150K was allocated many years ago, and we have earmarked about $2 million for playground and upgrades across the district, and those are coming back. So I would definitely expect that over these years that we've been out and the cost to have gone up. Just one other thing I wanted to highlight and want to ensure that's done during this project is the big point of the playground was a sensory playground, which is very important, especially for kids that can get overstimulated or need a place where they can sit down and not be overstimulated or have things that they can interact with. So I would encourage during the discussions to utilize the term sensory to make sure we're encompassing that.
Excellent point. We did discuss that. And also including within a picnic area, shade structures, which the concern there is the overall maintenance. But definitely orientation of the trees or such is going to provide a lot of shade, but still, kids need to be protected from the sun.
Absolutely. Sarah?
And you mentioned this in your presentation, that the goal also is for it to be an educational space as well. And so that the sensory piece and the educational piece were things that we had discussed originally when this came up. So I'm glad that's still part of the focus.
Yeah, it is. And that's part of the equipment that can be specified as we go through this. And there's a whole array of options to pick from.
Absolutely. And
Is this going to be on the back side of the building?
It will be, yes. And part of the thought process in placing it there is open space and parking, but also as Blackwood recreation area continues to develop and is utilized, that families with special needs individuals could bring them over and get them out of the path of the big events over there and still feel like they're a part of it.
the key community access to it.
Thank
Carrie?
you. Just real quick, thank you for this presentation and the images that we were provided with. And it seems like a lot of it does include sensory with the music garden and, flowers, and there are different things that are sensory elements. And I'm imagining that people from our EC department, and there's input, right, from that's being involved in this.
Yeah, they were part of the original committee whenever I was at Standback for the STEM presentation, they were very excited talking about all of the stakeholders in there. I just want to make sure we use the term sensory. So as you're talking to the playground, they're going, oh, okay, yes, here's a different flower that may not be as bright as what we usually have because it may be overwhelming, or the music may be a little duller or directional, so it's not propagating through the whole playground, just as examples.
Yeah.
It was fascinating, a subsequent meeting just in color choices, because there are as many pieces of equipment there are pieces of the pieces, and each one of those can go with a school theme, muted colors, brighter colors, and that'll be part of the design process as well. But it's not one size or one color fits all. There'll be a whole lot to pick from.
Any other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do you all have a date of when this will be like dirt?
Probably 30 days to get the input and have a design package to present back to the board here. Then within 90 days of that, we could put it out to bid, I feel like, with CRA. That is one of the top 5 projects that they've identified, or we've identified, that we'd like them to pursue. So pretty quick.
Fantastic, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, next we have update on summer feeding sites.
Hi there.
Hi.
And I would say, if you haven't been to the playground that Josh Hammond did at Graham, it's amazing, and my kids love it, and it's a lot of people go there. So tonight's presentation is a follow-up to the summer feeding program information shared on the March 20th board meeting. So Orange County Schools, School Nutrition, has been working to set up logistics for this year's SFSP, and all sites have been approved to provide free meals to all students or children under the age of 18. No registration is required. All someone has to do is show up and a free meal will be given. For information regarding SFSP sites near you, anywhere in the NC, a family can text either food or comida to 304304. And a copy of our proposed summer menu is attached to the agenda. And what I would say is 7 OCS sites will be in operation to support our summer programs. All sites will follow the corresponding operational program of that school or that site. However, it's important to note for our families that the sites will be closed June 19th and the week of July 3rd through 7th because of the holidays. And then we're excited to also note that we have 2 open community sites that have agreed to partner with us again this year. Cedar Grove Community Center will be operating June 12th through the 30th. They will be open Monday through Thursday, and meals can be obtained in their main community building from 12 to 1. Eflin Community Center will be operating June 12th through July 28th, and meals will be available in their community center from 12 to 1. Families should note that the meals have to be consumed on site. And again, these sites will follow the same thing. They'll be closed for open feeding sites on the 19th and the week of the 3rd through the 7th. And then we're also excited to say that we have 2 new community partners this year. So we will be partnering with Boomerang Youth and the Kids Plex at Orange County's Sportsplex. And these sites will be offering free meals to participants in their summer camp programs. We are still looking for additional sponsors. So if there are any community partners or churches that are interested in providing free meals to Orange County Schools students or anyone under the age of 18, they should just call our office and I would be more than happy to share that information with them. So are there any additional requests for information that I can provide tonight? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I just wanted just a comment. I just want to thank you because the community center told me today that you're going to be providing 50 meals a day for 6 weeks. Is that?
Yes, yes.
So
We'll be
thank you.
Yep, we'll be doing their training, and the great thing is we can up those numbers or lower those numbers based on what they need, and we will hopefully be partnering with the Sheriff's Department. Again, I haven't talked to Daniel, but to get some enrichment activities for them, for the families that come out, and hopefully No Kid Hungry and a couple other locations will come out.
Thank you so much for that. It makes a difference.
It does. And we'll see what we can do too.
Thank you. All right, the next item is talking about the climate culture and 2 potential items. And again, this is just a discussion. This is not an action. So as we went through policy committee and others, very quickly, we wanted to get opinion from board members on the directions or thoughts around this. Of course, anything that we would want to pursue definitely would need to go through the budget committee, et cetera. So with that, I'll just open it up for discussion on these options or others, of course. The intent is looking at a method that employees could have a way to talk to somebody about concerns, issues, anything they wanted to get advice on, and be outside of the normal process or chain that exists today. So with that, I'll stop and see if there are thoughts, ideas from board members around this. Bonnie?
Sure. I'm glad we're talking about this. You know, it's always difficult, and it doesn't matter if you're a school or a corporation or a community center. It is always difficult to speak up when things are not going well. It's easy to say, hey, everything's going great, thank you. It's really hard to say, that really didn't make me feel comfortable. And it's really hard to do it if your person that's making you uncomfortable is your boss, or maybe you're unhappy with a comment from the Board of Education, but you could be, you know, it happens. And I think we want, if I can, I think we all want a culture where people speak up rather than walk out. And if you recall, back at the beginning of the school year, we talked about hiring a consultant to talk to people and say, hey, how are you feeling? So I just will say I'm very interested in bringing someone in, but I would like it to be someone who is outside of the district, outside of the board, independent, who people can talk to anonymously. And right now, I'm even more interested in hearing how they perceive things rather than investigating and solving the problems. I just want to see, how do people feel about being in Orange County schools? And one of the things that frankly has me a little concerned is transfers. If somebody wants to transfer to a different school or transfer into a different department, it's very difficult to ask for that, because you don't want, it's very difficult to ask for that. So just in particular, as an example of the kinds of things that we want people to just be able to be comfortable to speak about.
All right, others?
That's just to start us.
Dan?
I think what you said, Bonnie, is exactly right, that people need to feel comfortable. And I think that people right now, for whatever reason, don't feel comfortable coming and talking to people in central office or their principal or anyone, really. They feel like they're going to be looked at differently, or something's going to happen, or there's going to be retaliation against their child if they have a child in the district. There's all kinds of reasons that I have heard from various people. And I think that in this day and age of culture and climate that we have been talking about since August, that we really need to do something to help the people in this district feel comfortable and feel like they have a voice and that they can be heard when they have something to say, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. But right now, I don't feel like they have a voice in what they would like to express to people. And I think we need to do something to help them, because I'm afraid that we're going to lose some more people, good people in this district that work hard every day for our kids and our families. And if we don't do something to help them, I'm afraid that we're going to lose them. Just my thoughts.
Sarah?
Well, first, I just want to acknowledge that I do think that there's been a tremendous amount of effort that's gone into creating avenues for staff to share their thoughts. This year in particular, I know that there's going to be district level teacher working condition surveys. There have been the advisory group. So I think that there are a number of efforts that have been underway in order to create those avenues for people to share their thoughts. I think these two approaches are mainly focused on if you're an individual employee experiencing a situation, having an avenue to share that. And then there can be different levels of those situations, right, that can rise to a violation of policy, something legal. I mean, there's just many levels there. I am finding it difficult to have sort of a general conversation about this without sort of more clearly laying out what our options are. I mean, I understand that there's a job description, there's a job description, there's a board policy, but what just sort of table format, like what the different responsibilities of the different types of roles are. I've worked in organizations that have had folks in employee relations and have had ombuds. They do different things. And then there's the question of budget and the amount of time that we would want to hire somebody to do this also. My initial thought, without having a more sort of structured conversation about it, hearing what staff's thoughts are about the different options, is that I do think an ombuds position can often be helpful for not addressing individuals' complaints. That's not really the purpose that I've seen it serve, but that it is about speaking to individuals, enabling them to know what pathways to go down, helping them feel safer to say something to somebody, for example. So sort of problem solving with them about the actual situation that they're focusing on, and elevating trends then to the district leadership. I do think that's also something employee relations can do. And so there's a question of, will that person be more successful if they are within the hierarchy of human capital versus sort of officially outside of it? And I think that there is some value in ombuds have certain codes of conduct, or there's an official ombuds organization that has certain standards for the profession, and that sort of thing I think could possibly be reassuring to staff. But I think those are some of my thoughts, but I think my headline is I would appreciate sort of like a more structured conversation about this.
Yeah, this was one of the reasons we brought it here, is to get thoughts. And again, it's not like pick one or the other. It's here's a couple of things, but what's on people's mind. You have Bonnie that's talking about a very different option than these two, but really just what are the key things that the board would like to see in this discussion? For example, for me, I know one of the things I hear over and over and over is the ability to talk to somebody outside of the chain of who can I call and talk to. And, the term retaliation is almost always heard. And so, what can we do to enable people? Because I don't want this to be a permanent thing, but to get us to a place where we don't have this kind of concern in our district, especially when we're trying to attract people to our district, trying to keep people here. And how do we distinguish Orange County and the services and things we're providing to our employees and their opportunities to, have somebody to talk to? Because I believe some of the cases are people needing someone to talk to and understand what their options are. Not necessarily there's a complaint like, I want you to go fix this, or I think this needs to be done differently. I think some people need somebody to talk to that they're comfortable with, that is going to stay within that conversation. So, but all of those.
Just one more thing that I want to add here, because you mentioned like hearing over and over retaliation. That is people's perception of what might happen if they, go through standard paths. There has been no, that is not an actual problem in the district that's been like verified or so. I mean, that's the idea that's, I just want to be clear that that is based in perception. it is possible that there have been retaliatory situations, but there is a large, it's people's concern. There's a lack of trust is the sort of fundamental concern.
Yeah, I can't comment on, the reality of that. I do know people have shared things that they feel, and most of the time it's being treated differently, is the term I hear. But Carrie?
Yeah, so I actually think it would be good for it to be designed to be a long-term, like, I think it's a sign of a healthy district that we're considering having like a established, vehicle or process. And so I think, I don't know why it would, you mentioned it being like a short-term, like problem solving, but I don't think these are new problems in our district or any district. And I think as we have implemented different ways to hear from more people, this would be one of those ways, and having it done in a structured way that is, I want to learn more about the two different options, or a combination of both, or both of them at some point. So I agree that I'd like this to have a more structured conversation, but I don't know why it would have to be a short term.
Yeah, let me clarify what I was saying. I believe it'll evolve. Like, you're going to learn something, and then you're going to say, let's try this, or let's do this, because I think us distinguishing our district and what we're doing and retaining and, giving people different options, I think it's going to evolve is really what I mean. And the short term, you're going to see, hey, we found out I'll make it up. We're going to have this person X hours a week. Hey, let's increase that to more because we see there's a lot more interest. Or, hey, we want to include this, or 10 months to 12 months, anyway.
Yeah, I have just a couple of thoughts. See, I don't think we fully understand, and Sarah, I agree that as far as instances of retaliation, it's very hard to see, but when people perceive a fear of retaliation, they start looking for a job, and that's my concern, is they walk instead of, they vote with their feet, and that's of great concern to me. I would like I see it as, I'd like someone to talk to a sample of our folks for a few months and see if we could find out. In a perfect world, we don't need this. There's open communication and everybody's receptive. Life is very stressful right now. Life is, we're doing things that have never been done before. But I would like to understand what the problem is, how big it is, what the nature of it is, before we made a commitment to put a person on staff. That's how.
I would just like to counter it, that every time this has come up, what we hear is it's always like this. And we're not unique in the district to have this. And if doing this makes us a distinguishing district that gives people a way that they feel empowered to discuss and us become a better district, I'm personally willing to invest in that and see what we can do. But I'm just saying, it's not a new issue that is coming up for us or other districts. It's just we're choosing to talk about it publicly, about what are the options. And my concern is when we look at the money we've allocated for covering, it's a huge amount. Why are we having this? What's going on with that? And anyway, I don't foresee that this is short-term, as Carrie said. I think this is something that would distinguish our district.
Yeah, I agree. I just am not, I wonder if we have to figure out what it is and what it looks like so we can decide how to define the job description, because I'm not sure, is it facilitation of how do you go through channels? Is it problem solving? I'm just not sure. And so I'd like to have some idea. So that's why I'm looking for a little bit of input and content before made a decision about.
Yeah, again, this is not a decision item. This is just discussion.
Yeah, that's all. I'm just wondering if we could find out a little bit.
All right. I guess to just get some items from this to come back, I've heard a few things, like a comparison of the options. I've heard understanding more of the specifics of what this would cover. Like, what are we trying to do with this?
I want to hear what people have to say. I want to open up the channel. Hey, tell us what's happening. Let someone, here's an independent person, all your comments will be anonymous, and just open up the channel and see what it looks like. What
So
kind of
that would
things
be
people.
one of 3 options.
That's a
So-
third option.
Yeah,
It's-
that's a third option
that's
to
a
come
third
back to.
Yeah.
And the other one, I believe I've heard as well, is having some autonomy through this, like some way to go outside the normal chain. Is that consistent?
I think that goes to option 2.
Yeah.
2 of the options are outside. That's a characteristic of 2 of the options, right?
Yeah. All right. Any other parameters that we'd like to share to bring this back at some point?
I think there are choices around the amount of full-time capacity that we would require. So
Great.
is this a 10-hour-a-week thing? Is it, in this one job description, it's 25 hours. I think it seems like probably not full-time, but just some consideration of that as another level of option.
Yeah, I'll just remind the board that regardless of these options that come back, we would still need to go through the budget process to understand how we would fund this. Not that we wouldn't, we just need to make sure among all the priorities that we have, how does this fit in? And, the amount, to your point, Sarah, is it full-time, it's this much? If you're part-time, it may be something that is easier for us to start and engage what the interest is and how the efficacy of the whole program is. Go ahead, Ken.
I just like to learn a little bit more about the, like the codes of conduct that you mentioned with ombuds. It's really important that this is like a judicious person, a neutral person, that there are confidentiality, that all of those factors would be important for a position like that. And I'm not sure how exactly that applies to, the other employee relations, how that would be different or similar.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on this?
Sorry, I have one more thing before we leave this topic, y'all, which is I think a number of the sort of responsibilities of the role could potentially sort of toggle on or off for either of those 2 options. Not the third is obviously something different, but the sort of functions that the person would perform, I think some understanding of which of those are choice points and which of those would be sort of standard.
Okay.
I just would, yes. I agree fully that this is a differentiator, that doing this would tell anyone that wants to work for Orange County School that we want to hear you, and I love that. I also think if we're successful at this, the person will not have a job in a year or 2, that they'll work themselves out of a job because the normal channels will work better. That's what I would hope.
I don't think so. I think maybe they could expand their scope to like students and families or something, but I think this trust issue, regardless of its characterization in our district, is a broad challenge in many organizations and school districts. So I think
Okay.
And again, until we start, we're not
Until
going
we
to
start,
know.
we don't know.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, everybody, for the engaging conversation around that. We now move to our discussion and action. I'll note that we have 15 minutes before we have to extend the meeting.
Good evening again. Tonight I'm here to request the board's approval to renew annual contracts and services for school nutrition. Just to let you know, Orange County Schools participates in the North Carolina Procurement Alliance, which is a voluntary group purchasing organization formed and led by the School Nutrition Services section of NCDPI. The mission of this work is a partnership to procure high-quality, reasonably priced goods and services that will enhance the health, well-being, and academic success of our students. The formal bid process was conducted by NCDPI. Contracts are entered in for a 1 year, and then they have the ability to renew for 1 year additional terms. So this year, Orange County Schools has elected to renew the following bids: Cisco for Lot 1 Foods, Lot-free supplies. This renewal option will be one of 4. The board approved the original contract last June. Foster Cavernous for fruits and veggies, renewal option 2 of 4. Original contract was approved June of 2021. Note that the NCPA conducted the bid opening for product pricing last week. We were actually hoping to have contract prices today, but they have not completed their final audit approval and we have not got final contract pricing. So final contract pricing is unknown at this time, but the request is to approve the renewal of services pending attorney negotiation and approval of the non-monetary items and conditions. Again, this would be a renewal of contracts that were approved last year with the contract price determined on this year's final product costs. And we're also asking for renewal of locally bid contracts, being pet milk for dairy products. Renewal option 2 of 4, original contract was approved June of 2021. SFS PAC for safety and sanitation, training services and materials, renewal 1 of 4. The original contract was approved earlier this year. And for K-12 RD, which is a registered dietitian consultant service to run nutritional analysis to ensure that our menus comply, that we meet all kinds of verifications, and she creates our recipes and our production records. So this would be a 1-year extension to her service contract. The superintendent recommends the Board of Education approve the renewal of contracts and service agreements for school nutrition services contingent upon the superintendent and the board attorney approval of the non-monetary terms and conditions. Any questions for me?
Sarah?
It is pretty tricky that we have to approve like school lunch prices before we know the cost of the items that are going into the school lunches, right?
So the request to approve prices is more based on the USDA standard of what they set a meal price should be, right? We're non-compliant with that.
Right.
So when you look at it, they're looking those terms over, all school nutrition agencies throughout the US, and they can use that to determine prices. I will say prices this year, right, with us renewing our fixed costs for storage, which is a lot of what our Cisco cost is, right? Those will be fixed, but pricing will be based on like manufacturer prices and what they can negotiate for prices this year.
Okay.
So I haven't heard anything about how high they can go up. I can tell you that our Foster Cavernous bill will probably go up because we were shooting for more high quality fresh fruits and vegetables, right? As opposed to stuff that was processed, trying to get more fresh into school.
Okay. Thanks.
So the only question I had is, in the agenda package, it doesn't list out the prices for some. Are you asking us to approve those without the final pricing?
Yes, because we've already agreed to renew their contract. So, I mean, we've renewed, we didn't go through the formal bid process. So essentially it would be renewing their contract without having the total price of the contract. Right, as soon as we can get that, or we can push it to later and put it in consent.
I'm
But I mean,
very
we've-
concerned
okay.
with doing that. I
Okay.
mean, we have no idea, given our budgets and our concerns we've had in the past. I have concerns without us. I mean, we're approving a open number. I have no problem renewing the 2 that are on here, or the 3 listed on here with the amounts, but I think we should at least see what their price is. Do you know when you'll have that back? We have a couple of more meetings before.
I do not know. Like I said, we were expecting to have it back this week, but there are some formatting problems with some of the submissions that we've heard from the auditing team. So they're working through those. We don't know when we'll have them back right now.
Okay, we have 2 more meetings that we all know about, a special meeting, and we're going to have one June 26th. So
Okay.
we have a lot of flexibility to do that.
Absolutely.
So board, could we get a motion if y'all are, go ahead.
Can I just ask a question? So if let's say we get the prices back and we're like, that's too high, what are our alternatives actually? Like rebid things? These are like the standard state, these are the big state contracts? Or?
So this would be for us to rebid every single food or supply that we get throughout the course of the year. So if we don't do it with the Procurement Alliance, we would be on our own then to rebid all of those with a vendor.
I agree with you, and like realistically,
I mean, let me ask a different question. What happens if you wait until we have another meeting? Are we stopping food?
No.
Okay, so there's no harm in us seeing the data before, so.
Can I, do we have negotiating leverage here, or are we part of an alliance that?
Yeah, the Alliance has already done that for us. So
The prices are just going to be given to us, so we don't.
Yes.
So the only option we would have is to find somebody, do something else on our own. Yeah. So I think it's good practice to say before we approve it, we'd like to know what it is, but I hear that if we don't like it, it may not.
The options are limited.
Doesn't matter.
No,
But I think it's a good idea for us to know if it's okay with you. If
No,
it
I
doesn't
can
hurt you.
absolutely agree with that. It was on the agenda, so I'm bringing it because I did not want to pull it.
All right, so there are 3 items on this item that have the prices. Can we get a motion to approve those items pending legal review of the terms and conditions?
I'll move that.
Second?
We have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the annual contract renewals for facility and maintenance.
Yes, this evening, we are seeking to approve 6 of our yearly contracts and service agreements detailed with environmental health and safety, and our maintenance contracts and service agreements. And I'll just kind of summarize and run through the 6 that are on the table here, beginning with the Public School Works deal. Is a web-based safety regulatory compliance management program designed especially for public schools. It has the training videos and classes that we require staff members to complete yearly. There's Dude Solutions now, or School Dude now, that we call Brightly, which is the web-based software modules, maintenance essentials that we do to put in work orders and be able to track our work orders, facility changes and updates as well. We have the Solutions Group, and twice a year they are able to come in and perform indoor air quality testing throughout our school and school buildings. There's Hodge Pest Control as well that focuses on our fire and ant services for system-wide building and grounds throughout the district as well. Final 2 include the Charter Elevator Piedmont LLC, which handles all our servicing inspections of our elevators and lifts. And finally, Schneider Electric Building Americas, which is the HVAC building automation company that many of our schools use as well. And that will close out the 6 yearly contracts and service agreements renewals.
All right, any questions? Sarah?
Just a request, and thank you for this, happy to approve these, but the indoor air quality testing, I don't think we've gotten the results of that in some time, so I'd like to request those reports. And I think we were on some sort of schedule of those being presented to the board, so I'd love to be able to get back to that.
All right, any other questions? Okay, do we have a motion?
So moved?
And I'm sorry, could this motion also include attorney review?
Yes, motion to approve these contracts pending attorney review.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next we have the 6th grade lacrosse participation in spring 2024 season.
Yes, we'll transition right to our 6th grade lacrosse eligibility approval. So we're seeking approval for the modification of the eligibility rule for 6th graders. Currently in Orange County schools, middle school student athletes, grades 6, 7, and 8, can play all 14 middle school sports, with the exception of 6th graders are exempt from football and lacrosse. North Carolina DPI, the governing body for athletics, states that, hey, we'll make decisions regarding football in 6th graders, yet public school units can make decisions regarding eligibility for all other sports. As a result, our 6th graders are unable to compete in lacrosse at this time. So I'd like to bring to the table a few items that will help kind of guide our governing principles in allowing this to occur. The first thing we think about in looking at modification of the rule is safety, right? At this time, there's no additional risk for our 6th graders to compete in lacrosse. The risk equates to that of all the other sports they're playing, for that matter. Over the last 10 years, when you look at lacrosse and look at lacrosse rules, they have changed greatly to make the sport much safer. Both officials and the rules guidance that's been created for physical play and stick play and the like has lessened. All right, and so the game, in essence, and particularly defensively, is almost similar to defending a basketball player, that type of contact related to it for the most part. So these rules are much stricter at the middle school level as well. When you look at information regarding concussion rates and the like, two sports that rise above lacrosse in terms of that are sports that they're already competing in, soccer and wrestling. Rates are higher as relates to concussion rates and the like. So again, no additional risk to be able to allow or place sixth graders in competing. Sixth graders are competing currently now at the club level, at the travel level, and AAU. And many of our skilled 11 and 12-year-olds are actually playing up in terms of their age and the like. So that's currently going on. In our neighboring district of Chapel Hill, just last year, they implemented and had their first spring of sixth graders competing in the OPAC conference, the conference that we, Orange County Schools, competes in as well. Also close to us for sixth grade competition would include Durham Academy, the Duke School as well, and our youth and area rec leagues and Hillsborough Hilltop was another organization that allows sixth graders to compete. And of note, I think we are in a special allotment in that, we offer the sport of lacrosse, an additional component, whereas some of our neighboring districts, Wake and Durham, don't even offer the sport of lacrosse. So that gives an opportunity for our sixth graders to have an additional sport choice for them as well, which I think is fabulous for that matter. Also some context regarding our sixth graders and how they'll compete. They'll compete in what's called a fifth quarter. The fifth quarter would be actually before or after the game where all sixth graders will compete against each other. Now, will there be times where sixth graders will compete in the normal four-quarter game with seventh and eighth graders? Absolutely, and those are those ones whose skill set indicates that they can compete at that level. But primarily as an inaugural year and as they matriculate sixth graders into athletic competition, they'll be competing against each other in either that fifth quarter before or fact and afterwards, and that's the way Chapel Hill implemented it this year with their sixth graders as well. So we'll be right in line with that to introduce our sixth grade student athletes. Another component, equity and access. As I mentioned, I think we have a very special opportunity for our student athletes here in Orange County to compete in lacrosse as a sport offering as well. Lacrosse is an extremely expensive sport, right? New equipment, anywhere from $800 to $1,000, and used equipment can range from $200 to $300, right? And what this will do will allow individuals who cannot obviously afford that space to compete for their school team. They will not have that fee to be able to pay to play, right? And it gives them an opportunity much earlier on, right, to compete and increase their skill set as we go. As we dive into the equity and access component a little bit more, I'm sorry.
Can we get a motion to extend the meeting? We have 2 more items plus a closed session.
Two more items, but don't we also have the items pulled from consent?
Oh, yes, correct. So 4 total items. Hopefully.
Mr. Atherton, I do have a recommendation with regards to items, if this is okay to bring this up now. So with regards to, what item am I looking at? Hold on. The, under discussion action, item E, after school program fee increase, the information the board requested, we don't have that tonight. Ms. Carr is not here. And so I would suggest that we table that one and bring that back either during the special call, or if it can't wait until then, to bring that back on June 26th. And we'll do some messaging to families in the meantime. And with regards to, there's one other one. With regards to item I think it's 18 from the consent agenda item, policy 4342, if it so pleases the board. Thinking that that one may need more discussion time. That's the one regarding student searches, the new regulation and the search dog detection procedures. Is that the one you were pulling, Mrs. Smiley? Wondering if we could bring that one back for more discussion.
So I'd like to have that discussion because we have a policy meeting on Friday. So if we could get the feedback, we would know what to discuss in that. So I'm not even sure what the discussion is on, to be honest, without having that. Is it a long discussion?
I have a number of questions, so.
Okay, like 12 or 4?
Probably around 10 questions.
Yeah, I don't know another way around it.
Just a
So-
recommendation.
All right, so can we get a motion to extend the meeting and table item E, after-school program fees, till a future meeting?
I move to start with a 15-minute meeting extension.
Okay. Okay, with the tabled E item?
Yes.
Okay. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right.
No problem. About 3/4 of the way done here. So I want to dive back into equity and access, right? And into that space and reference a little bit about, the opportunity that it will give individuals who would not normally, be attracted to a sport like this. I lift that up because this past year, one of our focuses in our coaches' meetings was to speak on an equity piece within our athletic teams. We want our athletic teams to reflect our school populations, for that matter, and had an opportunity to work with Mr. Lee Williams and the equity team to speak on that a little bit and to give coaches a different thought and ADs a different thought pattern in terms of recruiting student athletes from their schools to get on teams that they would, or play sports that they would normally not compete in, right? And this opportunity allows that, right? We want to create that type of feeder in doing so. And that leads to our comprehensive approach to athletics. Allowing sixth graders helps to build that feeder. We want also great high school teams, and they start at our middle school level, for that matter. And it supports this approach by allowing and getting those sixth graders in early to enhance their skill sets, getting those sixth graders early to be able to understand the game, and they can play the game much safer themselves, for that matter. And finally, increase participation, right? We want our sixth graders to compete. This additional sport helps to increase our overall numbers at the middle school level. And again, like I said, we're unique that we are providing this sport, unlike some of our other districts, and gives them another sport opportunity, sport offering, I should say, to compete in. Thank you.
All right, questions? Sarah?
Just to follow up on the concussion question, because I know that was the original reason the board, I think it might have been before my time, decided not to extend to lacrosse. So you were saying that the rates are higher in soccer and wrestling. Is that also in our school district? Like, how do the lacrosse versus other sports concussions look in Orange County schools?
Well, we haven't done it obviously for sixth graders, they haven't competed yet.
In general, in the sport of lacrosse versus the sport of soccer or wrestling or.
Got it. And that information will be compiled this spring, so that'll be in the June meeting. That'll be presenting that data from this past spring that we just completed.
Okay.
All right.
Do you have any sense of that now? I mean, that's my concern. I think some of us were sent, maybe all of us, a study about the rates of concussion in lacrosse being higher than in football. And I know we have a great deal of concern about concussions in football, and so.
All right, well, right. So if we take concussion data in general, we eliminate football, right? Because we're not, all right. Outside of that, our next two would be wrestling and soccer. And again, these are sports that our sixth graders are competing in already. All right. Lacrosse falls right behind that. And several studies I'll be glad to share as a result. So like I said, it doesn't present any more additional risk because again, they're competing in sports where the concussion rates are actually higher, for that matter, with soccer and wrestling.
Okay.
All right, any other questions, Bonnie?
I'm just curious how many kids are playing lacrosse right now, high school and middle school?
Sure, I'm gonna give you that 1 second here. So at a high school level, at a middle school level, I should say, I'll just give you the breakdown of the teams. Here we had on Standback's team, there were 23 on the roster. Orange Middle School had 32, and Gravely had 26. So a total of 81 middle school lacrosse student athletes.
So it's popular.
Oh, very much so.
Very popular.
Very much so.
All right, this is an action item. Do we have a motion to approve?
So move.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, next is the Nutrition Community Eligibility Plan for Partnership Academy.
Good evening again.
Hi.
The Community Eligibility Provision, otherwise known as CEP, is a meal service option that allows schools to provide breakfast and lunch at no cost to all schools which qualify. So the goal of CEP, thank you, sorry, vertically challenged. The goal of CEP is to ensure access to nutritious meals in high need areas. So because school districts use CEP to determine their identified student population, we would no longer have to collect meal applications each year from students and families to provide meals at no cost at schools which are eligible. And note, it's important that the identified student population is not the same as our free and reduced eligibility numbers. So this year, the ISP times what the USDA calls their multiplier resulted in Partnership Academy being CEP eligible at 100% of our meals being reduced at a free rate. Some additional OCS sites qualified as potentially eligible for CEP, but is not the recommendation of the district at this time to move forward because the numbers of those schools just don't work out, or they may result in a change of the current federal resources allocated to those schools. So as a CEP school, the meals that actually get served get reimbursed either at a reduced or free price based on the ISP. The remaining percentage of the meals not covered under the provision will be reimbursed at the federal paid rate, meaning that any costs between those two differences would have to be paid through non-federal funds. So the calculation for some CEP potentially eligible school sites indicate that they would not be able to stay in the black because reimbursements that would be received wouldn't cover the cost of operating the school nutrition program at those sites. So we just recommend that CEP be approved for Partnership Academy, that they can receive free meals, and that no matter what the household eligibility income is for those students, they're eligible to eat for free.
Any questions? This is an action item. Can we get a motion?
Motion to approve.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, next we have Policy 5030, Facilities Used, first reading. The reason I pulled this board is that one of the items early or late last year was to try to address the facility use policy to meet a lot of the community needs. And this policy's been updated to address that. And the reason I've pulled it is to request that we waive second reading on this one for the purposes of the summer use to be eligible to do that. With that, are there any questions about the policy?
I move that we waive that we approve with waiving second reading. Is that the correct way?
Yes. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, next we have Policy 4342, Student Searches. The floor is yours, Sarah.
Thanks. Anyone else who has questions, but yeah, so I'm not on the policy committee, so I had a number of questions on the first read of this one. The first is, I was curious whether the district already had documented procedures for canine searches or if this is new, like bringing new clarity to that.
So the red line shows the.
Sorry, I'm talking about the procedure, not the policy.
Physical procedure in the schools. I'd have to defer to the superintendent on that.
I'm sorry, could you?
The procedure document doesn't have any red line.
Already procedures for drug dogs. Not to my knowledge, having discussed with Mr. Obley, I don't believe there have been protocol. I don't believe there have been.
Right, the regulation, Regulation. That's a new,
Yeah,
new
that's
portion
a
of
brand
this.
new regulation. It's based on something we developed for another school district.
Okay, that was my second question. Where did it come from? So it's based after a different,
Yeah, I drafted it for another school district, and we made very few changes, basically just adapted it to your policy.
great. What is the expected frequency of the random suspicionless searches? How often do we expect to have those?
That is in, there's basically a limit that's built in the reg. I don't recall it offhand. I'll pull
It's
it up.
no more than once a month at a
Yep.
school, but I'm
Yep.
wondering how often do we expect to conduct them as a district?
I could answer that.
Yeah, I don't know that we can answer that.
And how long would a search take? So like for a classroom search, the students all leave the classroom. What is the amount of time they would be out of class?
Mrs. Smiley, I don't know the answer
Not either.
to that question.
Can
It
I
would-
help with that?
I'm
Just
sorry?
help, can I help with that? Because I have done it.
I think it will vary. But
Few
that's-
times.
Yeah,
experience
that
with
would be
it.
great, yeah.
It might take 5 minutes at the most. And what generally happens is the children come out of the room and leave all their belongings in there. The dog goes in, they're in the hallway up against the wall, and the dog goes in with the handler and sniffs in the area. If they hit on something, then that's when administration is involved. But I would say no more than 5 minutes, and Andre, you correct me if I'm wrong, but by the time you get the kids out in the hallway, get the dog in there, and then get the kids back,
They've completed it.
5 minutes.
So Mrs. Purcell, they must not have found anything at your school. But if they find something.
Well, if they
it-
find something, then you handle with that one thing without the rest of the class knowing what is going
Right.
on.
Yeah.
And
I appreciate you sharing, though. That's a real good example. But I would say that it's just hard to say definitively it's going to be a 5-minute, the children will be out of school, of the class for 5 minutes. That's going to vary depending on a number of factors.
Yeah. What is the expected cost to the district of utilizing these services? If we don't know in general, what's the expected cost to the district of like one search of a school?
It's not
It will be
If
free?
If I can say, I
Yeah.
don't think it'll be anything. I mean, when K-9 is called to be used, they just contact the local law enforcement agency and they come right in.
Aren't
So
additional charges.
There's no additional charge.
I think that was something you'd want to discuss with the sheriff's department. I'm
Right,
sure that
right.
they'll bring them in if there's, you know, if it's a drug investigation, but this would be a suspicionless, this is a sort of proactive thing.
Right.
So I think that would be something you need to talk about with the sheriff's department.
I think it is part of the
I think it's
MOU.
part of the MOU with the sheriff's department. It
Yeah.
used to be.
Yeah.
I
I
haven't
don't
seen one.
I don't know that there's specific provisions for it. I mean, some, again, logistically, programmatically, something you need to talk about. They'd be providing the officers and the canines, so.
Yeah, I would love if we could come back to know whether there are additional costs, like whether there are any additional costs to the district, what is already in the MOU, and where that funding will come from, if there are any additional costs.
Okay.
Have some others, but
Carrie had a question.
Yeah, I'm curious how much vaping devices would be picked up by the dogs. I mean, how much are we, like, what specifically would the dogs be hitting on? Because we know that we have a lot of vaping happening at our school, so I'm just curious how often those would be triggering.
I can say in the past that we have had dogs that recognize vapes within the school because there's some type of chemical in vapes that dogs can detect. But I will say it's a great deterrent to know that we have canines, and then if the kids know that, then hopefully that'll decrease, you know, the vapes being brought to school, so.
I think that it may depend on this. I'm not an expert by any means, but I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think THC itself is odorless, but cannabis, marijuana has a strong odor. So depending on the compound or the nature of the vape, it might be something a dog could detect or not.
Should I motion
Go
to
ahead.
extend this for another
Yes,
5 minutes?
please.
A motion to extend for 5 more minutes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, please.
Okay, it says teachers should watch students for suspicious behavior. Do we have a clear and specific definition of what suspicious behavior is, so that teachers could be trained on what that is?
So
As
that's-
opposed to something like a student having a panic attack because they've been attacked by a dog and they are having a reaction in the moment.
Yeah, I think that it ties back, the legal standard is reasonable, articulable suspicion. It's a Fourth Amendment standard that applies in public schools. It's less than probable cause. It's more than a hunch. And it's kind of hard to articulate it beyond that. I mean, there's case law on that. Your search policy accurately states the legal standard. So the policy itself, which has only minimal revisions that are basically the only changes in the policy, are to require the superintendent's approval, not her designee, for any search. Other than that, really no changes in the policy. The procedures are brand new, but this legal standard always gets back to for searching an individual. So that there's a difference between running dogs through a school building, and they're not sniffing in people, they're sniffing rooms, right, or hallways or lockers. And that does not implicate the Fourth Amendment. If it's, well, it can, it has to be done in certain ways. We looked at case law in developing this regulation for another school district. But when you're searching an individual, that's a higher standard. It's reasonable, articulable suspicion. And again, you know, it's hard to develop a checklist of what that means in every city. It's a holistic totality of the circumstances test. You look at all the relevant circumstances, and if a reasonable person would have reasonable suspicion that that person has contraband on them, then you can search them in the school.
I think I would find it more reassuring if we had some way to train teachers on what to look for suspicious behavior. If we could give something more specific to them, because I think suspicious behavior could be different in the eye of the beholder, and my interest is in them applying that consistently.
Yeah.
Carrie?
To echo that, I think we'd want like our equity team to weigh in on that.
I don't doubt that students could act suspiciously. I just think we should be real clear about what that is. How will students be prepared for these activities? The suspicionless searches that we would start doing, how would we prepare students? Not in that, I mean, obviously they're unannounced, but in general for this.
Well, the regulation speaks to what will happen prior to the search.
What does it say about that? Let me.
There's annual notifications that go out to parents. I'm trying to think what else.
It's an annual notification to parents. I'm asking how we will prepare students. So the example of students who have a trauma response to dogs because they're like deathly afraid of them, or have questions because they have allergies or whatever, you know, like how are we just preparing students for the nature of this? I would like us to think about that and have a plan. If a student is identified for an additional search and that turns out to be a false identification, what happens next for that student? So drug dogs are not 100% accurate all of the time. They miss alert. There are studies about this. And if I have been, if my belongings are deemed to be suspicious and I'm pulled to the office for further searching, but then that was a wrong situation, it seems like that could be a situation where if I were a student, I would feel deeply embarrassed. It is possible that there could be rumors or other negative attention from my peers. So how will we specifically mitigate that negative impact on the student? I think that the procedures should address that, what will happen for a student who is misidentified in some clear way so that there's a standard approach. I don't know what it should be. And then my last thing is that I'm requesting 2 things related to data reporting on this. So the procedure speaks to the data reporting. And my 2 requests, one is that the board get a quarterly report of the information that the district's going to be tracking. So the district will be tracking this, and I would like us to get a quarterly report. And I'd like to put that action step into the procedure in section 6. And then I also, or in policy, wherever is most appropriate. And then I also want to request that the reporting keep track of the outcome of each case in which a student was identified for a further search, including whether that alert resulted in the discovery of illegal or contraband materials, or whether it was a false alert, right? So the number of how often are students being identified correctly or incorrectly. And then I'd like that list of students selected for further searches to either keep track of who the specific student was, or at a minimum, their race and gender and special ed status and multilingual learner status, so that we can understand in the quarterly reporting to the board any trends in accuracy, including by those different identity markers. So I would like this procedure, when it comes back to the board, to include some of that additional detail in reporting.
Thank you.
Other comments?
Just, I just had one sort of framing comment. This is administrative regulations that technically don't require board approval. However, if the board does not support the use of the dogs in the schools, then the board should let the administration. You can obviously say that that's a no-go, or put parameters on that. So effectively, I think you can have say over the regulation. But just pointing out that I think this is brought sort of as information, technically as information item. I think the superintendent could adopt the regulations, but the board, of course, has authority to say yes or no, you may or may not use the dogs.
So maybe the request then is the data reporting to the board piece, to put that into the policy. I don't know if that's I don't know where the right place is for it, but I think it is important for us as a board to get a regular report of how often searches are being conducted and the outcomes of those searches.
I mean, we can just request that. I mean, we could put it in policy, but we
Yeah,
can
that's what
just
I'm saying. I
request
think
it,
in
yeah.
this policy, perhaps we could put it there, just to be clear about what that is.
You mean put it in the regulation part of the policy, or in?
No, in the policy, because
The
the
policy
regulation,
itself.
staff can just modify at any point, right? It doesn't require board approval. So if we put it there, it could be taken out. Not that you would take it out. I'm
In
just
theory,
saying,
down
like,
the road, it could be, yeah.
it could
Someone
be
might
at some
not
point,
remember
right, by
this
somebody.
conversation
And
down
so,
the road, right.
I think it's important for the board to be able to monitor this.
So we'll add that to the Friday's discussion on how that would look in the current policy, and bring it back for second reading.
Sure. I don't know if we're taking this back to policy committee, I guess we can take any individual board member feedback for review by the policy committee and then bring it back for the board. Is that the idea? As opposed to asking the board to vote on it right now?
I mean, the board could vote on it with this change, and then the policy committee would modify it, bring it back for second
Consider
reading.
further revisions, right?
Right. I mean.
Right,
whatever
I
the
guess your
pleasure of
options
the
are
board
to
is, I don't have
approve
a
what's
preference.
before you, table
Plus.
it, refer it back to committee, or approve what's before you and ask for further consideration of further changes, or all options.
I don't have a preference on this. From my notes, the main item is the statistics. Everything else was around the procedurals. All right, is there a preference from anybody how to do this? So we can get approval of first reading with changes to be sent back to policy, recommendations back to policy to bring forth a next revision for
Because we
second
could
reading.
always make revisions before second reading. That's the purpose of second reading, in
Yeah.
fact, so that would work.
Sure.
So the action step in the item is to also approve the procedures. Is that?
We don't have to.
Right. Technically, I don't think that's board approval is required. I think it's just, it's sensible of the administration to package it and bring it to you, because it's a
It goes
big
together.
deal to start doing something like
course,
this.
yeah.
You don't want to say, hey, we adopted regulations and started doing drug searches without
How you're doing it.
board approval. So it's a way of getting board approval, I think, for the idea as well.
All right, we need a motion to move forward.
Motion to, I don't know how to say it now.
Motion.
To put the.
Approve first reading.
Approve first reading, but put changes suggested into the policy.
Refer
and
back
bring-
to the policy
to the
committee
policy
for
committee.
for
Bring it
additional
back.
changes.
Bring it back
For
from the policy
potential
committee.
additional
For quarterly
changes.
reports, yeah.
Something like that. We've all taken notes and can go back to policy committee with Ms. Smiley's suggestions and other suggestions and come back. But so on your motion, Ms. Purcell, it would be approval of the policy
Approval of the
changes,
policy.
but also referring back to policy committee for potential further additional changes.
Okay, we have a motion.
Second.
Maybe.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Opposed? All right, thanks, everybody. With that, we are ready to go back into,
Motion to go into closed session.
Do we need a meeting extent?
we do, because we only have 4 minutes. It'll take us 4 minutes to get back there. But, so we'll need a motion to extend and then we'll go back.
Okay, a motion to extend for what, 15 minutes?
That's fair.
I move that we extend the meeting for 15 minutes.
That'll bring us to 10:45. We have a motion, a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are in closed session.